Being that it is 10 o'clock, we are going to call the morning workshop session of the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners to order at 10 a.m. First up, we have our department update from Public Works. Director Kelsey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a couple items on the consent agenda. The first one is a request for the chairman's signature for our Title VI annual submission to WashDOT. And this is to tell about our Title VI accomplishments for the past year and then what we hope to improve for this next year. So it's a required report that we do annually. We have a couple of final acceptance and on a release of retainage and a retainage bond for the countywide edge lines from last year, as well as the Old Mountain Road project. So it takes a long time to close these projects out, and it's not ours or the contractor's issue. It's when we turn them into the state, it just is much slower than it used to be. So on the construction side, I'll let Seth talk about these.
Our grant-funded signs and guidepost project is physically complete, but we have gone through and come up with a punch list of items that need to be repaired. Contractors waiting for those new signing materials to come in. Roosevelt Grade Road, again, we have a punch list of items that need correction, but we're also trying to determine the extent of the defective pavement. So next week we have a consultant coming back in to do some more coring. On Courtney Road, contractor's been shut down since last Thursday because of the weather. They're doing a little bit of work on the lower section, but not a whole lot of excavating and embankment building can be possible until the ground dries out. The Klickitat path, we are hoping to advertise that as soon as possible for our concrete work, and then our crews will pave the path, and they're looking at possibly doing the paving in August, September when they have an opening. The courthouse parking lots, we are in our internal review currently and hope for advertisement this month. The annual striping program, they're waiting to get started. They're waiting on their paint order to be supplied.
On the maintenance side, the crews should finish up over at Annex 1. It'll be prepped for paving and concrete work by the time they're done. They pull out this week. And then next week, they'll start up on the road up to, or driveway up to the radio site. So that work will get started next week. We were able to, it took us a while, but we were able to locate a bulldozer to move some material and make a road up to the site. So it's hard to find materials and equipment. So everybody's busy, but you know, eventually they'll have new money from the federal government that they approved earlier, but still haven't figured out how to get it out to us. But that will probably really slow things down as far as accomplishing work and having enough people and materials and equipment to do what needs to be done, because there'll be a big demand. Not that there isn't already. Let's see, and then we're grading and patching and mowing until we can't mow anymore, which is, thankfully, we still have rain and moist weather, but
means everything's still growing.
Yeah, we'd like to not have that too. So yeah. Let's see, facility side. I think the big major thing for this week is the HVAC engineer comes back, the contractor and the architect, and we're all going to hammer through the last issues that are remaining. So hopefully we can get resolution before too long to those 5 additional units that are kind of noisy. We talked about the radio site, unless you had more questions, but our geotech did finish their work. We have a report back, and so the structural can start designing the foundation for the tower, and we can kind of start moving ahead with that project. Just kind of a follow-up on the brushing. So Pine Forest Road, so I drove out there. It's been a couple weeks, but I just following up today. This is the picture I handed out was from across from the golf course before you get to Foster Road. and there were a couple trees that the mower actually got. The crew earlier in the year had actually rented a lift, and because they know in certain areas it's more, we get more calls than others, and so if you drive further up Pine Forest, it's neatly trimmed. You cannot tell unless you really know they did it and are looking. So I drove all the way up to Pothole Road up Cedar Valley, and because they said they had done brushing, and you can see if you look, but it doesn't look like this. So this is the only couple trees that are like this, so it's very minimal. I just wanted to follow that up. And then one other thing that isn't on my follow-up item. So I have another employee that's out from the facilities group, starting, I think, next week for maternity leave. They will only be working 2 days a week for most of the summer, which is our busiest time. And so I'd like permission to add another temporary helper to help us otherwise. I mean, we're already running at a lower level of service without any temps. We'll try and recruit people to fill and help us out with Ben's departure. And then this will help us with that basically part-time person that we'll have all summer that's out on maternity leave. So the downside though is we're already cut pretty lean in that area, and we'll probably be back for a supplement because we'll run out of money to be able to make the payout for Ben and then have this extra person for those summer months. Probably till the 1st of September. So whenever we can get somebody till the 1st of September, it's about to have somebody here full-time as a temp is about 10 to 12,000 a month. So, but that'll get us through.
What is that, what budget is that in?
It's facilities, yeah. So it's general fund budget.
Then do you have a I don't want to, I don't want to pin you down on a number, but the payout as far as for some
Ben,
sense.
yeah. I don't.
Because we typically, we try to cover that if we can in the existing budget, but that's kind of an extraordinary expense that we typically have backfilled when we needed to. So I would be curious what that number is.
Okay, I don't have it, but I can get it to you.
Because that's kind of hard to budget for something if you don't know
Right.
somebody's
Yeah.
retiring.
I said, I guess the only question I would ask, but I feel like I'm rubbing nickels, is there something on there that could be pushed off? But again, it's rubbing nickels, so I said it, but I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, we can, we may have money somewhere else that we don't spend.
Well, that's my
but the-
question is, can you wait until third quarter to ask? You're not gonna ask for
Yeah,
supplemental
no,
soon. It's
no,
gonna be
we won't.
maybe at the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll go over in wages and benefits is what'll happen, but we'll have money, but yeah. So we'll
I'm good.
figure it out. If you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm a
thank you.
yes.
No, we got to take care of our property.
Thank you. And that's it, unless you can think of something else.
I had one come up this morning. Some staff was wondering if the annex building over here that we're tearing down and we're gonna make parking, if we could turn that into staff-only parking as an area for staff so that it can be seen from the cameras from the jail for safety concerns for staff that are, experiencing. We've just got some people out there that people are a little worried about, and it would give them a little bit more of a peace of mind. If that's a discussion we've had about, an area that's just for staff.
Where?
They were thinking
Corner one?
the corner one where the annex building was.
Yeah.
Juvenile was.
Yeah.
that building.
And natural resources, that one.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I don't know how you make it just for staff and tell anybody they can't park in it, but
I thought you were looking for that job. So.
never.
Yeah, okay.
If it's signed, I believe you can.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
you can, unless you've got
Encourage,
somebody that's
Yes,
writing
yeah.
tickets, but
Or discourage.
Right, but if you can put signs up that say, staff parking only, Monday through Friday, weekends it's open, something like that
there's gonna be pushback,
from,
the community.
well, we are adding 100 and something new parking spots, so how much could you push back?
Does the cameras not cover the bank parking lot at all?
Not really, no. It's too far away. Yeah, so you can put up a sign. I think the challenge is managing that or enforcing it. I mean, it encourages people not to, if you want to do that.
Well, I mean, we tell our staff not to park in certain places. It only makes sense if we,
Yeah.
give them a place.
Yeah.
And somewhere that they feel that it's safe, that's well lit, that has cameras.
I'm not opposed to the idea, I'm just not on board yet. I would like to see the parking built, which would then get all of our white car lot in the bank parking, which if you ever noticed, every car in that parking lot's white, would get it over to the old annex building, which should free up a whole heck of a lot of parking here real close by. And then I don't know when that happens, if you need to actually have a designator. I personally would like to wait and see what it turns out looking like and how busy it is before we designate something. Not that I'm opposed to it.
Let's say I'm not
I just
opposed
wanna
to it at
see-
all.
I want to see the
I think
problem
it's,
before I make a solution.
I think it's perfectly appropriate to have an area that's just designated for staff parking, whether it's that lot, and I get the security piece of it. So, but again, I don't think we need to decide today as far as we're building it. We're not gonna build it any different, whether if it's staff
No.
parking
We
or.
can still put a sign up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
signs
we can
are
put a
easy to
sign up
post.
later, one way
Yeah.
or the other.
Yeah, wherever you
Gonna
want to put
fence
them.
it with a, razor wire and, retinal scanner to employees be able to park it there,
So the
so.
one that I would say that would be a deal is I think this is gonna use it. This strip of businesses on Main, and then they're gonna enter through the back door. So if you were gonna do it that way, the only way to encourage them not to would be to put a fence along that back alley that now they have to walk the long way around, and then they might not use it. So there is some construction idea if you were gonna do it that way. So I don't know.
I think you can put up a sign, but nobody's the parking Nazi around here, and the best thing you can do is put up a sign and hope that most people listen to it.
Most people will.
Sure, yeah.
Choose to.
I just wanted to bring it to your
Yeah,
guys'
yeah, no,
attention
I
and,
think
see
that's-
your appetite. I think it's not a bad idea, especially where people are going and how people are worried about safety and.
Yeah, all the lots will be better lit. So there'll be, because right now there, and in the past, there wasn't a lot of lighting in, the lot behind the jail or the bank lot has one light. And so there'll be, when we're done, there'll be a lot more lighting and I think people will feel safer because you'll be able to see everything. So at night, so that'll help. But there won't be any cameras on the farther, especially the farther you get away from the courthouse. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Plus, I think we have certainly done our part with providing parking for all of our needs and then some.
Yeah.
So I'm less concerned about people pushing, but I mean, it's like, yeah,
We spent a lot of money.
We did.
For public parking.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
I did have one, if I may,
Go ahead,
Mr.
please.
Chair. I did get an email, and I know we talked about, it was about 3 weeks ago, was I had a complaint about, on Sleepy Hollow Road. That was right when I think we were hauling, that there was some
timber sale, I think.
Yeah,
was-
in there, and the road was kind of tore up. And I don't know, I have not been out there, but I thought we had dealt with it
I thought we did too.
too, but I had a new one this morning asking about it. And so I will make another trip up and have a look-see, I guess, as well. And so I'm just bringing it forward.
Sure.
As far as on Sleepy Hollow Road. So I think it's the same issue, but
Okay, I'll look into it.
same party.
Oh, okay.
So so I don't know if there is an expectation that's not achievable. Again, I don't know. I don't know what the current condition is
Sure.
to make that. I mean, this is a particularly unusual
Yeah.
year because of the moisture that we've had so late into normally we would not be getting,
Be dried out.
it would be all dried out now in the middle of June.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of rock on that road.
No. So,
Okay, I'll find out too.
Along those lines, the one that we've been getting up in Glenwood, where the water going underneath, we got another email about that. Is there?
Yeah, so, been working with Danette off and on. I know there's kind of a long-range fix that Natural Resources is working on. And then we have some culverts planned for October. Because of the
We
spotted
can't, right,
frog, we
right,
can't
we
get in
can't.
there until that time to do any of that kind of work. And so we're working on that. And I think she had gone out there and got somebody else to clean a ditch that's outside a right of way, and I think that's improved a lot.
Okay.
But when the creek jump, there's a lot that goes on with irrigation, and if they don't adjust things right, water goes somewhere else and
Oh, yeah.
somebody else gets more of it. And I think that's what's happening now. And there's also some ditches and channels that are not being maintained that I can't fix, and that's probably the longer term fix.
Right.
I can just keep the water moving when it gets to the road. So, and she knows, I've had several discussions with
Okay.
her.
I just wanted to bring that one up again.
That's it. That's all I have.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well,
There-
we'll work on minutes then. Let's see.
Hi. How are you ladies doing today?
We're good. You want us right up front now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Since I got the call.
Catch your breath.
Does anybody else miss Gordy breathing heavy when he gets here?
I know, it's when he used to have to run over, now it's just
Running
from
and
downstairs,
breathing heavy
upstairs.
for a while, and they just don't anymore, and
Yeah.
I feel like we're not fulfilling his workout program.
We did not take the elevator. I think this, having us over there is our exercise program. Yes.
Could put a little, hamster wheel right outside the door and make people run on it to
They
open
gotta
it.
run
Open the
5
door
minutes on
open.
a hamster wheel before they come in?
No.
All your secret notes?
All your
No,
secret
as a matter of fact, that you didn't.
Oh, I have it, thank goodness.
What's my name doing on there?
Yeah.
Oh, you'll find out. Okay. So let's start with elections, and it's been a while since I've been before you. Clear back in April, we had an election and we certified it that first Friday in May. It failed again. That Prosser failed the first time, failed this time too.
Was it like really close? I thought it was passing last time we checked.
Well, yeah, no, it wasn't. It was close, but not close enough to say it was gonna, it wasn't a squeaker.
All right.
Can I ask a question that's kind of pertinent, but kind of not? What do they do if there's a recount for something like Prosser, where we only have like 10 of the residents of their whole school district? Do they have to do a recount in their office and a recount in your office?
We would, but it would have to be requested.
Right. If it
Because
follows
it's not automatic.
Right. it has to be the threshold and all that. I was just kind of curious.
No, there's no threshold, not on a levy. They have to actually ask for it, like they did for the hospital district.
And agree to pay for the cost.
Yes, they have to agree to pay for it, and they have to
Right,
put
right,
a
right, right.
deposit down.
Right, right.
Yeah, there's no threshold for levies
Oh, okay.
or bonds.
But you would count the 10.
We would.
debtors that are-
We would have to call everybody in, and
We
It
would
would-
do the 10 and they would do the other part, just like we do normally. Okay.
that's right, like we did, we went through that drill.
Yeah.
Okay, so the deadline for mailing the ballots for the primary is July 15th. We'll probably mail them on the 13th, but the deadline is close of business on the 15th. Well, I think it's actually Saturday, but we're not going to mail them Saturday. And then also there'll be a primary voters pamphlet in addition to the guide online. So we attended the annual elections conference, which elections you have to be certified, at least 2 people in the office be certified. We're all certified. Not certifiable, we're certified.
You read my mind.
Yeah, I saw that look. So 18 of the mandatory requirements are in that conference. And so it's a 2-year certification, so total is 36. So we need to, attend it so that you don't have a bunch of other trainings to go through. Also, you're updated on all the new laws and what all is coming down the road, and it was nice to be in person and actually network and find out what some other counties were doing. So, steering committee, I know Gordy is working on the agreement. We hope to have it to you soon. Annual report, it was timely filed, and state auditors have been in initial communication. Our audit lead will be Susie this year, and she said that Lindsay will get a hold of us and schedule things. They're anticipating mid-July again. So I did have a message on my phone to call her, but I had some other things to take care of being out of the office. So DOL, they have a substantial fee increase coming down the road here. And like when you come in with a new car or something from out of state, it's normally $10 in your fees for licensing. This is going to jump to $50, plus your $4 reflectorization fee, and so forth. It goes down, right down the list. So the inspections are going to jump from 15 to 50 and into 75. So, and then they're gonna, the first of the year, they'll add another 75 cents on your commercial vehicle safety fee that we have to pay now.
I guess I'll be the first one to apologize in advance for all the angry people that are going to be screaming at you, thinking it's you raising the fees or us raising the fees.
Thank you. We do have it posted on the bulletin board in several places in the office. People have to stand in line and wait, and so I've taped it up on the wall so that they have something to read.
And everybody who comes in gets one.
Yeah, I have them on the wall, so while they're waiting, they have something to read.
How often do they now require you to replace your plates?
They took away the 7-year replacement requirement, which used to be. So now anytime you transfer a plate or buy a new car, so you transfer a vehicle, you buy one, transfer it, those plates belong to the seller. Those plates need to come off and stay with the seller, and then the new person
What
comes.
am I gonna do with those plates?
You can put them on a like vehicle. So if you trade your pickup in, keep your plates, put them, look at these fees and think of all the money you're
I
saving.
might actually
Yeah,
now, in
no.
the past, no.
Well, and the other thing
And
is,
if all else fails, you can build a birdhouse.
well, and the thing is, a lot of times.
$50 plates.
Depends on where you trade it in at, or if it's a private sale, you leave those plates on, they'll run around until those tabs are expired. And that's a liability on you, especially if you don't file a seller's report of sale. Vehicle gets towed, gets a parking ticket, any of that, you're on the hook if you don't file a seller's report of sale. So it's to your advantage liability-wise to keep those plates.
Good to
So-
know.
Anyway, so much for my licensing lecture. We have a plate inventory shortage statewide. We've been one of the fortunate counties that we have dodged the bullet in running out of plates. We've come close a few times. They have a meeting scheduled with us. Well, I'm on the licensing committee, and that's one reason, Wasaka Licensing Committee, on the 23rd to address this matter. Skamania County's been issuing permits for months. And you issue a 60-day temp, and then they come back, and you have to go back in and get another 60-day temp and so forth. They told us that they had the problem resolved, as I reported a few months ago. Evidently, that's not quite the case.
Are they
So,
still being produced by inmates?
yeah, and then they have others. I'm not real sure where they're all being produced, but first it was, they had a worker shortage, which I have a hard time believing with the penitentiary.
Well, they let them all out
penitentiaries.
of jail, so.
Oh, that might
Half
be,
the workforce is gone. so.
yeah, and then.
Labor shortage.
Now
They're
they're
stealing
saying,
plates.
now they're saying it's a supply.
It's like
issue, or
creating.
You know, the
metal.
supply to make the plates issue is a shortage,
Oh,
a
okay.
shortage of that. So we'll find out on the 23rd.
Can you restamp old plates? I'll sell them back to them for
Well, some of them,
25.
if GM, they're just printing labels and putting them on there. They're not even imprinting them. And so then they start chipping off, and then you have your customer come back in upset with you because I just paid so much for these plates and my decal is chipping off. Yeah. That's the fun we get before the fee increase. So anyway, we continue to work our office and IT with Tyler to get our online kiosk going, and that'll be a convenience to the public as well as to our office. So we're working through it. There's a lot of things and hoops to jump through on that. So the VSO, he's out on FMLA and also submitted his resignation. He had planned on retiring in January and decided he needs to do it sooner because of the reason he's out. I'm hoping we'll work with Rob and get an authorization to hire request here for you in next week. Hopefully we are interviewing election candidates this week, and hopefully we'll be interviewing finance candidates
Yeah, but
following
staff,
week.
staff candidates, not candidate candidates.
Oh, yeah, yes. For the elections position, oh
Yes,
my
okay.
gosh. Yes, man,
Well,
did I
sometimes
not
people
think,
misunderstand. I
ornery
know,
today.
I know, but
well, I came in and there were some other things and I was hurrying putting this together. Obviously, I did not rethink about the wording on this. We'll be interviewing candidates for the election position. Okay, we have a licensing position that may be out and gone, need to be replaced soon. And be the 1st of August or sometime in August. And we've had a couple people out with COVID, so it's, yeah. So out of 11 of us, there were 4 while we were gone to the elections conference running the office. Yeah. That's it, unless you have questions.
Questions?
I don't.
No.
Okay,
Keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
and hopefully this turns out better than I think it will.
Ride the wave.
oh, this,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do about what the state wants to do.
Right, but luckily you probably won't get blamed for it. We'll get blamed for it.
So each time you buy, you have to pay for the stolen vehicle unless it's a new car, right? The stolen vehicle checks? right?
Out of state, that's for out of state.
Right.
I don't know about the 50, if they do that every time, but the out of state's is 75, and they may do it. They don't list it that way on your fee breakdown.
They gotta pay for that transportation package somehow.
I would maybe think from formatting, I would have this little tiny citing down there, much bigger, as to why the fee increase.
Yeah. as
Notice it's
suggested.
this tiny little as directed by
Yeah, this is a flyer from the State Department of
Well,
Licensing that
exactly.
they want, that their branding that they put out.
That it wasn't us,
Yeah.
it was the legislature.
Well, yeah.
I
Yeah,
would, yeah, maybe a little highlight there.
Yeah.
Not as directed by the county auditor.
actually, yeah, because that's our wonderful legislature. It's not DOL, but I'm sure that they supported it. I would feel that they did. I can't guarantee
Well,
it.
it was especially, really needed because the state was so broke.
Yeah, we didn't have any money at all, so.
And that all goes to the state coffers.
Yeah,
It's
we
not an
don't-
increase
Yeah.
into any of the county revenue.
We just got a
Send them a bill.
$2 increase
Yeah, we
to
tried
our
that. It
agent
didn't- it
fee,
didn't
like
work
what,
well.
3 years ago? Something like that. So, yeah,
Fee, I mean, everybody likes to throw a fee on their collection.
anyway.
All
That's
right,
it. Unless
thank you.
guys have something else.
Have a great day.
It's gonna be no choice. Okay, see ya.
I like that positive
Mr.
attitude.
Chair, can I talk to the auditor for a second?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm guessing Quinn won't be here till 10:45? Oof, I saw there was an accident on Highway 14 right there at the tunnels, fully blocked head on, so. Okay. We will recess for at least 5, potentially 15, and I'm going to turn the record button off. If that's okay with you.
Nope, fine with me too. I'm not seeing the, nope, there goes the mic. Finally.
Okay, we are going to reconvene our meeting, and we have our Public Health Director, Quinn.
So I provided you with just our monthly numbers in your pack, or actually, I apologize, it was not in your packet, but I think you probably all have gotten that yesterday. So just kind of, you can review those numbers, and just wanted to give you some kind of highlights of what we've got going on. So for clinical services, the family planning program, they did get the Title $10. That was around $14,000, which was significantly lower than we kind of thought that would be, but still, improves our programming. So there are a lot of requirements associated with the Title X funding. That will definitely increase admin work, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out over the course of the next year. We did have to reapply for the telehealth grant that they'd offered us in January. We were supposed to find out about that in March, and then we just had to reapply for that. That was turned in last week, so probably in the next month or two, hopefully, that they'll let us know if we got that grant. That will allow us to do telehealth from both offices. If we have staffing issues in either office, if we have a nurse in White Salmon or not Golden Dome or whatever, our clients could still be seen there. Our nurse practitioner wouldn't necessarily need to be on site if there was an immediate need where a nurse couldn't cover what they needed to do. So they definitely have been seeing a lot more increased STD rates over the last few months. And they do provide counseling for that program. We also have the expedited partner therapy, so people are able to get medications without being seen. So they've been working with that. And we've been staffing the school health center for a couple of hours a week in White Salmon to increase access to birth control methods and counseling. And then this week we have the Smile Mobile in White Salmon. So they used to come pretty regularly. They haven't come for a couple of years. They offer free dental care to kids 19 and younger who are on state insurance or don't have any insurance. So they're here for the entire week in White Salmon. They're parked in the back of the parking lot. Our office called over 200 families that were identified as having health insurance or no insurance and offered dental care. They have 48 appointments available for this week, and they've booked 42 of them. So while they're there being seen by the Smile Mobile, they're trying to connect people with WIC services. They're offering them vaccinations on a walk-in basis. And I think the hospital has a representative there that's working on the community health needs assessment. So asking people just questions about their health and getting those filled out. So the Smile Mobile will provide extractions, cavity fillings, fluoride treatments, and then exams. And then if they need further services, they'll have referrals to local providers or their provider of choice. So we continue to give COVID vaccines on Tuesdays in Goldendale, Thursdays in White Salmon or by appointment. we're still seeing probably, I would say an average of 10 to 20 people per Tuesday in Goldendale, and anywhere from 20 to 50 in White Salmon on 50. Most of those are boosters, but definitely still getting the people here and there for their first vaccines. The nurses are headed out to Prosser on the 24th to do a vaccine out there. They've still been pretty active about offering home vaccines if someone calls and requests that for if they have any mobility issues or transportation issues. Staff have been going out to the homes to help provide those vaccines. Any questions on the clinical?
In here?
Nope.
Environmental health, most of their OSS for the month has been mostly new construction, had a few expansions and repairs. They're seeing about the same numbers as last year, pretty close. Nothing significant in their drinking water program or the water lab this year. Food safety is pretty par for the course. They continue to do inspections. I know they had two new businesses that they were working with to potentially open later this summer. David still is providing our public health emergency preparedness response coordinator. We've been getting COVID home test kits through that program, so we just got 2,000 more test kits. Working with that group, Region 8, to do the smoke and wildfire advisory meetings with ecology and the Forest Service, and then that provided us with funding to get 2 more outdoor air monitors, one for the Dallasport area and one for Roosevelt. I think last year we had 5, and if I remember correctly, there's one in Trout Lake, White Salmon, Goldendale. I think there's one in Bickleton, and maybe Lyle.
Where's the Goldendale one?
It is at the school district, if I remember correctly.
'Cause I was thinking it was on the building that's no longer on the building, so, okay.
They did restart their mosquito trapping program. They actually got the results back from last year. They had trapped 23,000 mosquitoes from 10 different sites. Most of the mosquitoes they got were in the Trout Lake area around Elk Meadows and then by the Goldendale Pool. So they're going to focus on those 2 sites this year just because those were the most successful of all of the areas in the county that they did trap in.
There's plenty at Elk Meadows.
Yeah.
It was just there.
It's a wet area.
Yes.
None of the mosquitoes that were tested carried West Nile virus.
Good to know.
And then as far as just administrative stuff for EH, they're still working on process flows for file intake and SmartGov. They have all of their records in in Goldendale scanned and in SmartGov. White Salmon still has about 20% left of those to get digitized. And then as far as just as overall department administration, we're fully staffed for nursing. Nicole Christensen is a nurse who started on June 6th. She'll work out of the Goldendale offices and getting trained with the other nurses to do vaccine, but her focus will be mostly on maternity services and children with special health care needs. We filled our fiscal position. Elizabeth Babler will start on or about July 1st. We're offering this to her as a remote position initially. I think she's going to be a really good fit. I'm really excited to have her. She comes very well recommended. I think it's going to be good. We have over 3,600 clinical records scanned. We have about 20% left for the clinical digitization project. And then I think for Board of Health, the job description will be on the website later today. The job application or the advertisement will go in the paper next week for 2 weeks, and then I'll work out a date with you all soon after that for interviews. That's what I have going on for public health.
Questions?
Where are we with the mental health short-term fix?
Thanks
Whole
for
other
asking.
binder?
It's a whole other binder.
Brought Rob forward too, so.
Rob's here to
So you're
support me.
done way too early, so we can
Mhm.
throw some more time in there,
Yeah.
so.
I assumed that was
coming?
I mean, so I met with an individual who's a DCR this morning and kind of talked me through what that looks like as far as the job. So they gave me this as my homework. This is mostly just related to what an intake looks like, and really wanted to make sure that we as an organization understood that there is a lot of work that goes into standing up a program and then doing the program itself. We met with Skamania County yesterday and talked to them about if they would be willing to potentially help. So in the short term, we have less than 60 days. If they would be willing to help fill the gap, to help support in the short term. They wanted some more information from us as far as statistics. I've reached out to Beacon as they would have those statistics. I don't. To help me support that, to give them that information, to help them with their decision-making process. So I'll hopefully get that to them in the next couple of days. There are a couple of clinics that Beacon's looking at in the short term that would help cover the DCR services as a telehealth, which everyone understands is not optimal. No one likes and understands that that is the option that we potentially have at this time. So looking at how we can blend in a short term a telehealth option while getting an in-person option as soon as we possibly can. So I think just, it'll be a conversation for you all to have where you see this going forward. It's a monumental amount of work to stand it up. And so if you want to do it as one of the clinics coming in that Beacon has found, and that's going to be a telehealth option, the hospitals and North Shore, based on the conversation I had with them last week, do not want to take this body of work on, but promised all of the support if I would. So I guess.
If I may, how much, do we have a sense as far as what it takes to be the agency?
I have a basic understanding, so we have to.
I mean, it's
apply.
obviously possible if Skamania County
It is possible, yes.
functions in that role.
Yes. We'd have to apply to be a behavioral health agency. So the biggest barrier to that happening from my standpoint at this moment is that we have to have in place all of our clinical protocols and procedures prior to applying for that licensure. That in itself is a lot of work. When we've met with Beacon, I think they're going to offer us a lot of technical assistance. I feel like they will help make that happen if that's the route we choose to take.
If we do have our own stand-up, is this something that we're doing on our own dime, or are we now eligible to be receiving the state funds that Beacon was giving the comprehensive?
We would have to contract with them, but my understanding that there would be no barriers to us contracting to receive those funds.
So we learned a little bit yesterday. Skamania County, they have a full tilt program. So DCR is that's just one small piece of what they do. They have their behavioral health therapists that, what do they say, 5 full-time ones. Each one of them's a DCR. And so, if they get a call for DCR services, one of those therapists has to clear their schedule and go deal with that because you have 2 hours to show up. But that person has a full-time regular job that this is not just a part of or on top of. And then on nights and weekends, they have all those people who cycle through for on-call, but then they also have 2 contractors that they have on call as well. And that's how they manage that 24-hour service. But it's a full, the full gamut, not just, because in Klickitat County, if we have DCR calls, it might be 1 a day. It'd be hard to have full-time staff 24/7.
And I guess I may, not my point of expertise or place of expertise, but it seems like comprehensive is not necessarily leaving the county. They're going to be doing a lot of things, just not some things. So
They're
it's
going to stay
like,
for
how much of
outpatient.
what Skamania does is comprehensive still going to be doing here?
My understanding is that they maintain their outpatient services and their substance use disorder services. But I think engaging them to be very clear about that would be important as well.
And if they are thinking about pulling that out over time, then we would need to know how long that's, what their expectation is, how long that is, so that if we have to build that system or pick up those people.
I don't think
I
they're,
mean, that's a 2 to 5 year process. Like, that's not something we do overnight.
I don't know that they're pulling out of that part of it. It's like, that's where they put all their ducks. So it's like, that's where they were focused before this whole thing left or happened. So I don't know. I don't see them doing that. I think they just don't want this piece.
Does Skamania County supplement that, or is it fully covered by the money they get?
They indicated it was fully covered and that no general funds were
Imagine
utilized.
Skamania having any general fund money to.
But we did ask the question.
Yeah.
I was talking this morning with the Senate bill passed, there's money for the make the bill. So, Senate bill is coming out, so. there'll be more money.
I will say that I feel, just based on the conversations I've had in the last 2 weeks, that there was probably never been a time in this county, or will be again, that we have this much community support, financial availability. Like, I don't think we'll have this perfect storm to really put something really great together ever again. Like, it's a good time. It's unfortunate timing, but
It's just a matter of workload, I guess. And are you still planning on getting we're forming some kind of a mental health subcommittee to help us through this project?
I have not. Yes, I've considered it. I did a little bit of work last week and just kind of like the 20,000 foot level, just complete logistics. And
Is that
so
something that we asking questions that I probably shouldn't be asking? I'll just hold that one.
No, you're good.
No, it's not. I guess I would say if we're doing a subcommittee for people to voice their opinion in it, I guess I'm worried if they're not going to be a player, that they don't want the job. They might have, I don't know how much I want them involved in creating the job.
The one thing that we talked with, we've been working with Leah from Beacon, who is an amazing partner, and I am just super grateful that we have her to work with. One thing we did talk about that they've done in other counties that they found was very valuable was doing town hall discussions so that people could just bring their opinions to the table about what they felt like, and they had a moderator that they would recommend that was really experienced, because mental health for a lot of people just having the conversation can be very triggering.
Right.
So having that moderator that knows how to work with those folks that might be having a hard time sharing their story, and taking the themes out of the town halls and putting those together, but being very intentional about who you choose to be on your advisory board. There is a group that's potentially, I don't want to throw them under the bus quite yet, but I think that they are interested in potentially putting that together for us. I think that they are a good fit, and I think they would do a phenomenal job. My 25,000 foot plan that's on sticky notes on my whiteboard is going to have a lot of do-outs it's going to be a lot of delegation. I can't do all of this. I mean, this is a full-time job in itself, so.
Well, that's
think
why I thought it'd be
once we have
useful, so.
better direction and understanding of exactly where we as an organization want to go, that those pieces can start being farmed out, and this community will stand up and do the work. I have absolutely no doubt about it.
But it is a weird spot that we're gonna get stuck in for quite a while, because, comprehensive, if they stay and they continue doing the substance abuse and some of the behavioral health stuff, and then if you have the hospitals in North Shore also doing that, if we stood up our own program, now you have 4 different things all competing.
Not
for
competition,
competing for the same clients. We're working together.
providing increased access.
Okay.
Well, that was kind of my concern is, without beating around the bush, was do the hospitals push back on the programs that they're doing because they don't want us taking dollars that could go to them?
No, those are the conversations I've had, and that's why I disagree
Okay.
about it's not competition. They want to work with us. If you can't get into comprehensive or KVH or, wherever, I don't even care where.
Right.
If it's a month waiting period, a 2-month waiting
It needs
period,
to be better.
you add additional providers in the community, you've now you're cutting down wait times, you're helping people get in sooner, you're decreasing crisis on the back end because
Right.
you don't have to wait for 6 months to get in to see
okay.
someone. So when I had the conversation last week, the understanding was that it was not a competitive event, that we were bolstering each other's programming.
Okay. Because, yeah, I agree with you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So,
The only fear I have is that we'll be competing for the same pool of people. So if we stand up our own program, we might be taking from KVH or the hospital or North Shore, because apparently there's a staffing shortage.
You're talking about competing for staff.
Yes.
I don't know that there's necessarily a staffing shortage other than a staffing shortage that didn't want to work for a particular company.
So I misunderstood earlier. So yeah, we'll probably be competing for staff, but we're fun to work for, so that's cool.
We have Aaron.
Yeah. Wouldn't want to work for the county.
So next step on this, we need to get that information to Skamania County. I mean, the short one, we've got to work on the short one. The long one's going to 2 to 5 years. But the short one and providing service in 50 days, do you need any direction from the board on where to go with that? Or do we just need to provide the information to Skamania, hope they step up to the plate, and hopefully we can find someone else to step up on the other side?
I think that before I ask for direction, we're gonna meet with Leah later this week. She's gonna provide clarification on what kind of technical assistance we can get, because I have an idea of what I need to ask for, but it's not, there's some things to work out before I come say, this is what we could do, this is what we need, this is how it will happen. I'm not there yet. If you want to swing by and look at the sticky notes and white salmon, you're welcome to.
We have faith in you getting there, though.
Okay. And then I guess just the direction as far as when you want me to follow up with this conversation with you all.
I would like to be in the loop as much as possible
Oh,
going forward.
thank you. So this is what I'd like to propose just in the short term. So I think I'll just put a little Google document together that I can share with all 3 of you so that I don't have to call everybody every time I have a conversation. So I can just type my notes if that's amenable to all of you. Then you could just pop in and read what I've written. If you have questions, you can call me, and if you don't, then it's fine too.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
And you checked with the PA that's
Good.
just fine?
That's fine as long as we're not
It's-
responding
so
to
it's-
each other.
Or we're not typing on it, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We're fine.
I
long
will
as we
set
all
it up
see
as
it.
read only, so it'll be a shared document, so I can edit it, you
That
can.
was gonna be my, thanks for asking.
I just
Because
wanted
I
that
saw
for the record.
yeah.
No, I checked first, because I needed an easier way to be able to communicate without
Plain telephone.
calling everybody, and then I forget who I've talked to and what I already said. So I think that'll be easier to keep it more transparent without thinking I just told you something, but really I told one of the other of you.
We'll get there.
We will.
Just takes time. We have faith in you to get us there.
I'm so excited.
But you need another chat, COVID's
know.
sort of, done-ish,
Yeah,
done-ish.
yeah, I was gonna get bored this summer.
You were,
So I know.
We need a new crisis for Aaron.
It was this or monkeypox. It's up.
Yeah,
to
so you choose.
I'm gonna pick monkeypox.
Actually, I
I'm
think
totally on board with that.
now it's yours. Yeah, you put it out there to the universe. You're gonna get both now. Not you personally.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why, you
uh,
wishing monkeypox and a health crisis on her.
He's riled up today down there.
I mean, you have to consider how many people have had smallpox injections, right, like, as a child. So like if you were born before 19, I don't even remember the date now. Like before 1965-ish, somewhere in there, you got smallpox as a child, right? So that just knocks out that part of the population that potentially wouldn't get infected. And you have to look at how many people have been in the military and got smallpox in the military, so they're off the list. So, you know, why pick monkeypox?
What you're saying is you're safe.
Statistically.
Yeah.
Statistically.
Statistic, yeah.
Yes, it is the Army's birthday today, so.
Any other questions, comments? Above board?
Stopping while I'm behind.
So just when you want your next update, minus the Google document, which I will work on creating.
I would suggest whatever as far as, because whatever we need to pull the trigger on and take action, then.
Well, yeah, okay.
I mean, no matter what, sooner,
I mean, we have a hard date out there, we know, we have to
Or
have
if you,
something.
or I would say if you come up with two choices and we have to pick one of those two
Right.
choices, then we need to know. I mean, if there's only one option going forward, I only need to know when I have to sign the piece of paper. But if there's multiple options, we need to have the conversation on which option this board wants to go with.
I think ultimately there will be multiple solutions to the problem, so
The long-term solution or the short-term?
both. So just make sure that you've bolstered the program so you have multiple opportunities as a safety net. I don't think having one choice is the right answer, but.
Yep.
all right. Thank you, Director Quinn. Is there anything else that you gentlemen would like to discuss on board pending or anything?
I'll give you an update of my conversation last Thursday with a White Salmon Assisted Living with, we had the teleconference with Anita.
Oh.
I have nothing good to report.
Oh.
It was a very frustrating conversation with.
No money for you.
No, well, at this point, yeah, but it's the reason why is that I had purposely asked for a video conference because this nameless anonymous person at the DC office. So yes, we have an application in for funding, the bulk of the funding for the assisted living facility.
The remainder or what?
No, the big 13.2 million, whatever, which was the percentage that we were eligible for. We were invited, we had a letter, I think dated last August, of notice of eligibility. So we had a written determination that the organization and the project were eligible for funding. No guarantee of numbers and how much, we all know that. Until you get the award letter, it's all speculation. But we had to submit a full application for underwriting. And that's where we've been hung up since August, where they keep wanting more information. And it appeared that the real issue was, are we even eligible? And so then we set this meeting up to get clarification on, let's get a final answer on what's going on with this. And so we had been told that the issue was with underwriting with this Anita, whoever at the DC, I don't know if she's actually in DC, but at the national office, not at the state offices in Washington. And so we did have that meeting on Thursday. Frankly, I was very disappointed that I had asked for us to all be on a video conference so we could see each other, because we've been having these email exchanges and the DC staff folks refused to turn their cameras on, which I thought was disrespectful, but neither here nor there. We could not seem to get past, we had a whole list of questions, and the first question was about, we needed a definitive answer on the eligibility question, and it seemed like they don't consider us that we're eligible, but the reasons they were giving why we weren't eligible, I had asked for clarification on what the criteria was, and they cited some, you know, whatever the equivalent, it's like RCW, blah, 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 but it was their whatever. And so when we pulled that about the organization, they really, Anita, when I say they, it's really this Anita person is very, very uncomfortable, does not seem to understand that both Columbia Gorge Housing, Columbia Cascade Housing, that we contract for our administrative services with Mid-Columbia Housing, because we're all small organizations that we can't hire our own. We choose to contract for all of our administrative, so that we don't have an office, we contract for an executive director, we contract for administrative staff with the Mid-Columbia Housing, because otherwise we would burn up all of our money in overhead and we wouldn't provide any services. And so we've always done that. When these organizations were set up decades ago, that's how it was done. I can't hire a third of an executive director. I can't rent a third of an office building. I do and can, we contract. That is our model and it's worked. They don't seem to understand that, because there was some reference made to money laundering and which, yeah, that there really is only
I guess I don't understand that, because I can't imagine a single rural community having
Exactly.
their own in-house.
Right, and that's what they want. They want, what she really wants us is she wants the county or either the Columbia Gorge Housing Authority, which has no assets, but has no anything. We're a pass-through to be the applicant and run the project, or have the county do it, which again, I said, I'm not aware of any county in the state of Washington that operates like that. We don't do that. And Helen Price Johnson, the former commissioner, who's the state director, said, yeah, she was not aware of it. I said, maybe
the west
King
side
County,
still?
I said, maybe King County does, I don't know, but typically we don't have county department of affordable housing, assisted living housing. And that's what they seem to want us to do. And they're basically saying, if you don't do that, you're not eligible for financing for this project. And so they have sent it to general counsel for an opinion. We're getting our own outside legal opinion, because having read the stuff that they cited, it doesn't say that at all. When you go through, because it's the eligibility criteria. And when you go through there, they're talking about us, the way we're currently set up, where I don't know what the problem is.
And that's the kind of a kicker for me that I don't quite understand, is this can't be something that's new for them, because every state, the rural parts of it have got to be set up close to the same way we are.
Exactly. And I did mention, I said, I'm confused because isn't rural development in your job description, in your title, and you don't seem to understand how rural counties and communities operate. We don't run, I'm not aware of any small local governments that have that manage them in-house with a county department.
It's not one of our core functions.
No, it's not one of our core functions. It is obviously an important community. We want to see this happen, just as we do all these other programs. And we have for decades supported organizations that provide those services, that we either pass dollars through, we serve on boards, to support those. We don't do those in-house. And frankly, we're not going to. And it seems like, why would we want to set up a new organization that has no experience when we have a organization that's in place that has decades of experience and is already operating one in the region? Rock Cove Assisted Living is owned and operated by the, well, we contract for the operations, but by the organization that's the applicant.
Right.
Because they're worried that, well, it doesn't have they want to safeguard they want the project to be successful. And they're worried that it wouldn't be if it's like, that makes no sense at
But
all.
we're sticking it with the successful.
We're gonna stick it with a successful regional, and that's why I said, it seems like you are punishing us for collaborating across state lines, and we've had a successful program for decades. And so I don't know. So the board is the Columbia Cascade Board is, we're gonna have a special meeting and decide about what do we do? Because we're seeking a council, a position on their eligibility. Plus, I did raise it's like, we have a written determination from your organization that the board of the housing used to make decisions about moving forward and investing our dollars into pre-development for this project. And now you're saying, did somebody make a mistake? They shouldn't have sent that? Because we have to me, we have the right to rely on that written eligibility that said, yeah, you're eligible. And, we've spent a fair amount of dollars, of the organization's dollars in pre-development based on that, understanding that we were taking a risk, but it was a reasonable risk. So
For a logical step.
for a logical step. So we'll see. Because I had reported last week on that also. Senator King was down and was very supportive of the project, toured the site. That was prior, so it was mostly good news until Thursday. So about finding a way to fill part of that gap that we have. Well, apparently now the gap is massive.
And was
So
that big multi-million, was that a loan or was that a grant?
that's a loan.
That's a loan.
It's a loan. So
Low interest.
low interest, right? In their community facilities
So
program.
what was the total cost of the project estimated at?
I want to say, I'm reticent to actually say a number.
I get it. Yep, no, problem solved.
But yeah,
So this loan was gonna cover roughly what percentage?
about 75%.
That's what I figured.
So about 75% of the project is now up in the air. So
Not counting the 10% or 15% that didn't have the closing money. for it.
exactly, that we
Now
were
have-
working
Now
on.
we have 90% of the project up in the
Yeah,
air.
yeah. So yeah, there's, you know who has been the most
We've got a
solid,
nice piece
best
of land.
partner? The county. So we put up before we shut up, so. Yeah,
Did the county already own that land or did they buy that land?
no, they bought it specifically for that project. In fact, we still own it. We leased it. There was some discussion about because the reason we didn't want to transfer it until
Yeah.
the project actually happened for this very reason. And so depending on what happens with this, we'll have to have
What are we doing with it?
what are
now?
we doing with it?
That new surplus sale.
Yeah,
That was what, 660,000?
$650,000. So,
I got nothing good to say on that one.
No, it's just getting messier.
Good luck.
yeah, so.
Hopefully the council can help sort it
I'm
out.
hopeful that we'll get, and if we don't, then also I think a discussion with the congressional staff,
yeah.
the delegation, because this is it's a bi-state. So at least there's, you have 4 senators and
Yeah,
at
but
least
I
2
don't know,
Congress.
I'm not entirely encouraged because even if this person goes out and seeks legal counsel and legal counsel tells her, no, you're wrong. I don't see her still too motivated to.
Well, no, it's be like, well, then assign this case to somebody else, because
That
it
would be your
seems like
best
there's a
bet.
conflict.
That's what I'm saying. Unless you can get somebody else on the case,
Yeah,
Can we talk
I
to
think
your boss?
you're uphill.
yeah. Well, and they went out of their way to say, this is a great project. We love this project. We want to see it happen. Why can't the county be the applicant? And then it's,
It would be our loan.
right, I was like, yeah, I don't see the county taking on $13.2 million of debt to finance this.
That we
seems-
still would be contracting it out and everything.
Which we would then just contract out, because we're not gonna run it. So, very frustrating.
Anything else?
No.
I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we recess the meeting and be back at 1 o'clock.
I'd second.
There's a motion and a second to recess for lunch. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all. See you shortly.
Send me to lunch on a good mood, why don't you?
Being it is 1 o'clock, we are going to call the regular business meeting of the Klickitat County Commissioners to order. First call, would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the business agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the business agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And we have no minutes for today, so we will move into citizen comment. You have 3 minutes to comment to the Board of County Commissioners. The commissioners will respond at 1:25, but this is your time to have a conversation to us. We will start in the room as always. I was just kidding. We will be starting online as usual. If you would like to provide public comment, please *6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone. Turn your camera on, wave your hand, raise your hand, get our attention somehow. We would love to hear from you. And
Readings are down today, sir.
it's sunny again.
10 to 29.
Oh, Brent. You're gonna have to unmute yourself. Oh, I need to turn on the.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, Brent Gimlin, Fire Chief, Glenwood Fire. Would like to put into place, we have a lot of citizens in this district that are not really happy about the burn ban going on tomorrow, and we still have standing water in our lower valley. So just trying to see if there's a variance or something we can do with this burn ban, because it doesn't need to go into effect on the 15th.
We're going to try to get Jeff on the line because, yeah, it rained a lot and it's still raining. And we put forward that proposal that the fire chiefs in district or zone 3, which is your zone, put forward. I asked the question, it's raining, it's still going to rain, do we need to move forward? Is there anything we can do?
Oh, yeah, you would know.
Oh, somebody else was
Yeah,
talking.
can you move?
So if, Lee, if you'd send Jeff a message and we'll try to get to it in the last 5 minutes, if you don't mind, Brent, and we'll take some public comment from everyone else right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, stay on if you can.
Oh, yep.
All right. And I saw, was it 0088? 0088.
Yes, this is Delmer Eldred, Goldendale. And I would like to know why the commissioners are so afraid to have a town hall and have people gather. I'd say probably a meeting at 6 o'clock at night so we can get the maximum amount of people there and have an honest discussion about the solar and some of the other things that are going on in the county with the commissioners. When they're so reluctant to face the citizens, it gives the appearance that there is a lot to hide that they don't want to discuss. And the fact is, I know you guys don't realize this, but the citizens are the employers and you are the employee. And your demands upon the citizens, like 3 minutes, is unacceptable, basically. You guys get paid very well. You can change your schedule. If you have to have a 2-hour meeting on comments, so be it. But this hiding behind this, we'll give a comment at the end of this deal. And, you know, when you make your spill, you say, we're open for conversation. There is no conversation here. So anyway, I just want to let you know that I want to give you 3 minutes to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Eldred. Do we have anybody else who is looking to make public comment? Four 4901.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Sherry. I was just listening to the comment, and I think that it is time that you guys stop hiding behind whatever you're hiding behind and come forward and speak to the community, speak to the people that you represent. You are the public servants. We have asked multiple times for you to have a town hall, in particular to speak about the industrial solar invasion that is coming to Golden Dell. And again, I say, if you know nothing about it, I question how Commissioner Christopher could already recuse himself. On what grounds? I'd still like to know why Commissioner Christopher is recusing himself from any discussion on the solar project named Carriger. So for the people who do listen or who might listen to this meeting later, yes, you know about Carriger, the project, the solar project off Knight Road. So again, I'm publicly asking that you have a town hall, you come clean with the people and you talk about it. If you're going to make every way possible for these industrial solar complexes to invade this area, you need to have responsibility and tell the people. Maybe you can tell us why it's so good for Klickitat County. Why do our commissioners feel they need to get it in? And when Commissioner Anderson submitted a resolution for a conditional use permit for solar projects off Knight Road, that was unnecessary. That verbiage was already in the EOZ, anything outside the EOZ. So to me, that was more than a wink and a nod to those solar companies. And when you denied our county solar ordinances last May, when you you rescinded the moratorium without a findings of fact. What the document I received is not a findings of fact to rescind this moratorium. You denied the people of Klickitat County protection. And you've also been informed how these solar companies are scamming the farmers, how these leases are bad for them. So when you don't protect your community and you hide behind these large corporations that are here to do nothing but harm and take from our county, from our land, you are harming, and you're not doing your jobs. You're not doing your jobs, and it's time to stand up, become transparent, get in front of the people, and tell us. In your 3 minutes back to me, why don't you tell me one reason why you feel industrial solar should be around Golden Dell? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bosque. Okay, we will get to them at the end. We're gonna just keep taking public comment, but thank you for letting me know. All right, is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment to the Board of County Commissioners?
Peter Leon.
9396?
9396.
Is that your phone number?
That's my phone number.
Okay. Can we get your name, sir?
Peter Leon.
Peter. Okay, you have 3 minutes, Peter.
My understanding is that last week there was a person that came in and criticized the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office posse for carrying pistols at public events when they're in uniform, and claimed that we were not trained. Well, I do the training for the Klickitat County posse to be able to carry a pistol. In order for someone to be authorized to carry a pistol in the posse, you have to have completed the NRA basic pistol course, which is enhanced, that covers all of the RCWs relative to firearms and use of deadly force. And then they actually have to pass a practical qualification down at the county range or at several of the other ranges that are available to us. And there's a minimum score that they have to do. And I am quite confident that all of the posse that is qualified to carry when in uniform is quite confident to be able to safely carry and to exercise good judgment when they're carrying their pistol. They know that they don't draw their weapon unless there is a danger of mortal bodily injury. And so when I heard that last week somebody said that we were untrained, I took offense at that. I'm done.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Leon. All right. Is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment? Seven, 211.
Greg Wagner with Cease. I'd like to know why you commissioners refuse to write and enact ordinances to regulate the developing solar, industrial solar in Klickitat County so that it will protect the county and its citizens. Why do you refuse to do that? Why do you continue to work for the solar companies and against the citizens? I'd like to know how Mr. Christopher can say our taxes are going to go down when the solar tax revenues collected, when the county doesn't even know how much tax revenue we're going to get. I'd like to know from Mr. Souter, what happened to the $300,000 in mitigation money given to the county to repair the damages caused by Avangrid's Lund Hill Solar Project? I'd also like to know from Mr. Souter, since you negotiated the bond for $20 million for that annex, what's the interest rate on that bond? And I'd like to know, what are the county commissioners doing to protect the county should a recession occur? It appears that that's on the horizon. I'd like to know what the county's doing. How are they controlling the spending so that we sure have enough money to survive a recession? I'd like to know why are private vacation rentals being allowed to operate without a conditional use permit? A conditional use permit is required for any solar project to be put on land it doesn't belong and used differently. So why is the private residence allowed to be used for a motel room when it's not zoned for that? Those are some questions I got. I'd really like to see if you guys have any answers. And Del and Sherry, they won't hold the town hall because they don't want the citizens to know what's going on. They're afraid to talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment? *6 to unmute yourself, raise your hand, turn your video on, get our attention. I've got one hand raised, it's showing at the bottom. Oh, Pat Arnold.
Good afternoon. I have three quick topics. One is that I think that your previous speaker, Peter Leon, didn't actually hear what I said. I didn't complain that the posse were untrained in firearms. I know that they're sent off to training is one of the very first things. When somebody joins the posse, my question was, why are they armed in the first place? And I think the danger there is that there could be some legal issues. If they're in uniform, as he said, which I was not aware that the posse went around in uniform and they're carrying arms and possibly handcuffs, looks a lot like law enforcement. And I'm wondering if there aren't some legal issues there and perhaps insurance issues for the county in case something goes wrong and people are performing the duties of law enforcement without the law enforcement training. The arms training is not in question. We all know they have that. Second, I asked a question last week about the pool, the white salmon pool, and somebody mentioned that there are 3 RCO applications. I think that was the number going in from the geographical area of Klickitat County. I assume one of those is for the pool funding. I'd like to know what the other 2 are. I know that there have been applications for RCO in the past for financing for the gun training range. I think one of them was implemented, one of them may not have been, but I'd like to know what the other 2 are for this year. And third, I have a favor to ask, which is that the WDFW Commission is thinking about taking their meetings offline and requiring in-person attendance for participation. And apparently, I did not sit in on this meeting, but I guess they, you could find it. They were unsure that they could make a hybrid meeting work. They thought it was a big hurdle to pass. And I'm going to write them and say that Klickitat County manages hybrid meetings quite well. And I don't see any reason why the WDW Commission can't manage hybrid meetings, but mostly I would like to request that you send them a letter that says they will be doing a big disservice to people in rural parts of the state if they take their meetings off Zoom. It's been very, very convenient over the last year or so to be able to join a Zoom meeting, even if the person didn't want to speak, but just to watch, or if a person did want to speak, to participate that way. And I don't know if there are other state commissions that are now also thinking of going off away from Zoom meetings. But on behalf of the Klickitat County residents who participate in these things, it's very inconvenient to have to drive to Olympia for a meeting. They would be continuing to be doing a big service for those of us who are in remote places. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. Okay, do we have anybody else who would like to provide public comment to the Board of County Commissioners? *6 to unmute yourself if you're on your phone, turn your video on, raise your hand, and we would love to hear from you. I'm not seeing anyone. Would either of my seatmates like to respond to any of these? Do we want to try to get Klickitat County Emergency Management, Jeff King, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Mr. King, we had a fire district, 8, I can't remember. Brent Gimlin from Glenwood was requesting that we push off the burn ban in Zone 3 because there's still standing water everywhere and there's still plenty to burn that needs burned. Have you heard from any other fire departments?
No, I've not heard from any other fire district chiefs in Zone 3 besides Brent, Chief Gimlin. I just got off the phone with him a little bit ago. I was made aware this morning. I've been dealing with some personal emergencies over the last several days and was not at work until just now. So no, I did glance at an email that he sent me at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. Included all the other chiefs from Zone 3, and no other chiefs replied back. I'm not sure how he contacted you, but Chief Gilman indicated that he would like the burn ban put off until July 15th. And that's the only thing I've heard from fire chiefs reference that Zone 3 burn ban.
Is it your professional opinion that the burn ban for June 15th should remain?
Well, that's a larger issue, speaks to past practice and policy. The county ban on outdoor burning is at the discretion of the county commissioners. And as your representative, as we discussed a couple weeks ago before you voted on that resolution, yes, I believe that was a little early, but we did not want to contradict the chiefs. At this point, it's done nothing but continue to rain. And I believe that a burn ban for Zone 3 starting tomorrow is premature.
What would you recommend as a burn ban, as an alternative for the burn ban, knowing that likely the rain is stopping now?
The National Weather Service is predicting some percentage chance of rain this weekend again. However, yes, we've thought this before, all the way back to late April and May when we instituted the other burn bans. But it should, in all likelihood, stop raining very shortly. And I would, at this point, if I had the final vote, I would say July 1st for Zone 3.
Okay.
Because the problem is as soon as the light fuels dry out, and as substantial as they are right now, that's where a fire will ignite, is in those light grassy fuels. And once that gets started this year, because of all of that rain we've had, the grass and the brush is so thick and tall right now. Once it gets started in those light fuels, we will have a significant wildfire on our hands. So at the point that happens is when there should be no burning. And that's, difficult to predict, but July 1st would be my recommendation at this time to the board.
Thank you, Director King.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
We can deal with that at 1:30. Do my seatmates have responses to anyone else? Well, first, I'm going to open it back up for one more. Is there anybody else who has not spoken who would like to provide public comment to the Board of County Commissioners? Star 6, turn your mic on and turn your video on, get our attention. Okay. Not seeing anyone? Seatmates? Commissioner Christopher.
So got a couple here, a lot of conversations about town halls and educating the people and hiding. I disagree with all of those statements. I'm not hiding. I've been open and available for anybody that wants to have a meeting or any group that wants to have a meeting. Will I allow that meeting to turn into a political stump with people standing on a soapbox screaming? No, but if they want to fill this room to ask questions of me on any given day, all they have to do is call and schedule an appointment and I'll make it happen. So I disagree with that. The 3 RCO grants for Pat is, my guess is the White Salmon Pool has one. There will probably be one going in for a Dallasport Community Park, and there will probably be one going in for a Goldendale Community Park upgrade. And then on the fire thing, I don't know if you want us to cover that yet. I personally don't see a problem with a July 1st date, but I also do not want to go against the experts. And unless the fire chiefs of that district or a preponderance of the fire chiefs of that district are okay with an extension, I'm hard pressed to go against their expertise. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Commissioners?
I did have a question, and perhaps either of my seatmates knows, to Ms. Arnold's question about, or comment about the WDFW. not being able to go hybrid. I'm assuming now they're not hybrid, they're only Zoom only. So, I mean, is that what I kind of got from? No, they want to go to in-person only. So it must be going from Zoom only to in-person and not having a hybrid step. And so I don't know if Miss Arnold, I don't see you still there. Are you still there, Pat?
Yep, that's correct. They've been Zoom only, and now they're proposing to move to in-person only.
In-person only, okay.
And apparently, one of the reasons is they think hybrid is unmanageable, it can't be done, et cetera. And sure, they probably have larger numbers of people attending than the commission does, but still, I think the technology is very manageable, and I think that you guys have shown that it's very manageable.
Yeah, I know earlier in the pandemic, that was one of the issues, right? You know, that hybrid was just too difficult to do. That was, you had to do one or the other. You couldn't do both. And it doesn't seem that hard to me if you're set up for it. I don't know, as you said, WDFW, maybe they have hundreds of people that are participating, but if they have hundreds of people that are participating via Zoom, and now you're going to have 20 people in the room and still hundreds via Zoom, that doesn't seem that big of a challenge to me. But
I think where WDFW is coming from is the comment periods. Like I said, I've attended hundreds of Fish and Wildlife Board of Directors meetings, and you get some where there's 10 people testifying, and you get some where there's 400. And I think that's probably why they're trying to eliminate the online portion of it, if I had to guess. So they can have a shorter meeting.
But I mean, that's one thing I will say I didn't appreciate the Zoom only legislative sessions. But for folks that typically did not, you know, it is hard to drive to Olympia for if you're lucky, 3 minutes. You know, I think it's more effective, and if it's something really important, I'd rather go in person. But there were lots of folks that were testifying that had the opportunity to testify and to watch that never did before. And so I think I don't see anything wrong with having a opportunity, let people have the opportunity to still provide comment. And if it's, I just don't think it's that big of a deal to have both. We do it every Tuesday.
Right.
Do I yearn for the days of you had to come in here to
That's what I'm
provide
saying.
public
That's
comment?
what they got.
Perhaps.
They got what we got, and they're trying to go back to the old way of doing it, so they don't have.
Right, and we're not,
the same people
we're not
yelling
going
every
back.
week.
Right.
And we're willing to have the same people yelling every week, and they want to go back.
If they want to. As to, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please, continue.
As to the other, there was several questions as far as the $300,000 in mitigation dollars from the Lund Hill project. The interest rate on which for the record, I didn't negotiate any bonds. That was the finance committee, or mostly the treasurer. And then as far as I am reluctant to answer off the cuff, as even if I qualify any answer as that doesn't seem to be adequate. And so I can certainly get those. I will try to be prepared with at least on those two. That is correct. There was a $300,000. No, I'm not even going to comment off the cuff. So I'll stop there. I think I will say I suspect the interest rate is quite attractive compared to today.
With regards to the 300,000 in mitigation, last I knew that was still in the Natural Resources Department's funds to be used as mitigation, and it has not been put out yet. With regards to statements like these big bad companies are scamming the farmers and it is bad for them, from Ms. Bosquet. That is a private agreement between two consenting, one being a corporation and one being an individual or a family. And we commissioners have zero to do with that. That is between two consenting adults. In terms of a statement like we hide behind these corporations, I don't hide behind any corporation. I am not paid by any solar company. I have not been paid by any solar companies. I know there's been plenty of rumors of boats and planes and everything else that these people are giving us that is patently false. And whoever continues to spread these lies is lying. Let's see, Mr. Wagner, you have asked a very good question. And that is, we are moving towards a recession. All indicators are moving towards a recession. And what are we doing to control spending? Well, we are in the midst of a inflationary period moving into a recession, which I feel could end up in stagflation. We haven't seen it start. The only precursor we have left is high unemployment rates. And that is all we have left, I feel, before stagflation occurs. Our problem right now is we have lots of positions open and we can't hire them. So we're not in that environment yet. But we are walking and are about to be moving into our budget season. And this is forefront on my mind is how do we ensure that we get spending and keep it under control, knowing that likely if we move into a recession, the sales tax revenue, the REIT revenue will all be going down and we have to plan for that. And that is a very good question and a pertinent question. And I thank you for that question, sir. And that is most definitely at the forefront of my mind. Is there any others? I think that's enough for today. There's no others that I feel need responded to at this moment. With that, we are going to close public comment and move into our next piece, which would be the department update for senior services. But before that, Sharon, if you wouldn't mind, I believe Brent is still there, correct? Brent, are you there?
I am.
You heard from Commissioner Christopher that unless he hears from the others in Zone 3, he doesn't feel secure in moving to a July 1st date. I haven't heard from Commissioner Sauter, but we did hear from Jeff King, who is our expert with regards to this. I think let's have a discussion if you gentlemen would.
Yeah, I would say, I would like to hear from the other fire chiefs in Zone 3. I mean, we basically rely on you folks to advise us as to when we put these burn bans in, because we're not the experts in that. I would agree with Commissioner Christopher. I'd like to at least hear from him, and if the preponderance is, I'm fine with extending or delaying the burn ban implementation, because I think the conditions out there, I think even lay folk can see that we don't have a whole lot of fire danger in Zone 3 right now. But I think just for consistency, that's me using my, non-fire person expertise. And I would like to at least get some check-in with those folks that I think we need to listen to them. I would assume that the other ones, I'm assuming probably agree with that as well, but I'd like to hear back from them if we can. I don't know if there's a way we can reach out to them. I know the burn ban is set to go into effect tomorrow. So it'd be nice if we could hear back from them. So we're here today, we can take some, if we're gonna delay implementation, that we can do it today. If we, yeah, the clerk is looking at me. We can do that, and then we would have to have the discussion about the logistics of how do we delay that implementation? Can we just do it? But I would be totally fine with it. Yeah,
How do you post for 2 weeks?
for
How do
2 weeks
you-
and
yeah.
do all this. I don't know, where you're not actually doing something is
Right.
probably easier than
Yep.
taking an
Just not
action.
enforcing for 2
Right.
weeks.
So,
And can I go one more, sir?
Yes, please.
Just for clarification on the reason why I want to hear from the fire chiefs is I'm not an expert in that field. I might be on the Centerville Fire Department, but I am not an expert and I do not speak for the chief of the Centerville Fire Department. So I don't speak for any other chief of any other fire department. I'm one of those people that likes to hear from the experts. You know, if I got a mole, I'm not going to look at the mole and go, no, that's not cancerous, even though my doctor said it is cancerous. Yeah, no, you take the advice of the experts and I need to hear, does it seem like it's smart to go to July 1st or July 15th? Absolutely. But I'm not going to go against what was, you know, previously provided to me without their consent or knowledge.
Well, I would say that I have a great amount of respect for all of our fire chiefs, the volunteer nature of what they do. And I have heard from one fire chief as well as our own emergency management director. Both of them, one saying July 15th, one is saying July 1st. Currently, our own Courtney Road project is mudded out. Currently, many of the logging operations are mudded out. I think it is disingenuous for us to say we need to stop burning. And this is burn piles. This is a campfire outside your house. I mean, there is literally no way to really catch a fire right now. We got an inch of rain over the course of 24 hours at my house. And I know, you know, the one we were worried about when we spoke before was Glenwood, because that's the driest area next to Appleton. And I mean, while it would be great to hear from everyone else personally, sometimes we have to make executive decisions in a short amount of time. What I don't want to have is a bunch of people calling into 911 or the non-emergency line because they see smoke tomorrow. And then we're spending county resources to go out and investigate these burn piles that every logical, rational person knows that it's not a problem. So I would be willing to make a motion if the board wanted to move to July 1 as the burn ban date due to conditions on the ground. But if we can get other fire chiefs online who may disagree by the end of the day, I would say that would be my motion at the end of the day.
So I would like to at least hear from a couple more. So if, you know, I don't know if Mr. Brett wants to make a few phone calls to a few other chiefs and have them, you know, shoot us an email or shoot Jeff King an email or have a phone call with Jeff King so that when we come on at the end of the day, we can ask, you know, Jeff, hey, what's the tally? I don't necessarily need to hear from all of them, but it needs to be more than one for me, because the last thing I want to do is overstep my bounds, you might say, get into a profession that I'm not qualified in, make an executive decision, forest fire lights up in White Salmon a week from now and burns community out, and it's because I didn't listen to my fire chief. So I have to err on the side of caution with that one.
yeah, I would give it to
Chairman?
Yes, sir. Director King.
Yeah, as your representative, even though I'm not in the office today, wasn't planning on working, I will reach out to the additional 4 fire chiefs in district or zone 3 and see if I can get their feedback for the end of the day. And I believe in other instances like this, the thing that we did before was rescind the current resolution. I'll have my staff write a new resolution for that, whatever date we choose in the future, so that you can approve that. Unless the clerk of the board knows of another method, that's what we've done before, in my experience.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, well, we will give a little while for everybody to contact those 4 fire chiefs, and we will talk about this at the end of the day. Thank you, Mr. Gimlin, for bringing this to our attention. It's been on my mind as well.
Yeah.
And I thank you, commissioners.
Thanks, sir.
Have a great day, sir. Okay, Director Carter.
Kind of surprised more chiefs haven't called in. I mean, we were debating this 2 weeks ago and surprised he's not the only one.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just glad we're not in Yellowstone.
I was supposed to be. Remember the
Oh,
vacation I was supposed to have?
that was now?
That was Yellowstone last week.
That would have been fine last week.
Oh, do you never go on vacation with me?
So I had a couple of personnel matters to discuss. So the main one I have is on case manager position. My Goldendale case manager is not going to be returning after. That's the one I've had a emergency fill in for that's been out since mid-December, and I am needing to replace that position, but actually wanting to increase that to a full-time position. It's been a 0.6 position, but it's been a 0.6 with full benefits. It was something that was grandfathered in a number of years ago. And so in terms of looking at the time that I've been spending in case management, that's been increasing over the years in terms of my time. Last year, in terms of my timesheet time, I've spent 300 hours in case management activities. That's doing direct case management work that takes away from what I need to do as the director of the department. Because of our caseload increasing and the fact that the position was only, 3 days a week, and typically we have people on case management that have issues every day of the week. So there's sufficient funding in the budget because we receive Title 19 case management services as the bulk of the caseload. And we do receive a specific monthly unit rate that more than covers this transition, as well as we have we do contracts that are cost reimbursement with a limit for family caregiver support case management, and our what they call MTD case management, which is a waiver program. And I've been finding more and more time that I've had to spend, filling in because of not having a case manager that's every day. Because the duties can't just be anybody in my office either. There's specific requirements that you have to meet. And I still do have to spend time on case management. Will have to continue to spend time because there is supervisory duties as part of that contract that I have to do. But more of that would be just addressing, challenging cases, some ongoing training pieces with the case managers, and then transferring in and transferring out of cases, which should be a lot less time than 300 hours. And I'm finding that, again, it's just taking so much more time for me away from my duties as doing director. And when I retire, in terms of somebody being able to sustain that is going to be a challenge. So there is definitely funding within these particular programs to cover that increase of that position from a 0.6 to 1 FTE, because we've already been paying out full benefits. We've also been paying longevity pay. So in terms of crunching the numbers, there is sufficient area for me to be able to increase that position to 1 FTE.
Can I ask a question? Isn't there like a rate increase coming up?
Yeah,
as
there's
well
they're proposing another rate increase coming up in July.
Okay.
So
Thought that
for
was
Title
my last,
19, yeah. So
meeting.
the other issue has been in discussion is the fact that the personal needs allowance, the legislature voted in quite a substantial change to the personal needs allowance. So there's going to be more people qualifying for in-home services that won't have a copay. So they're anticipating a pretty substantial increase in caseload. And it's an area actually that even, I know Sandy Dement, who's on our advisory council with ADSWA, has talked with ADSWA about, based on the numbers of low-income folks and folks that are disabled and elderly needing services, they've wondered why there aren't more people on our caseload. And some of that has been more of the access through home and community services, but we're anticipating that's gonna change quite a bit when there's the transition with the increase in personal needs allowance and more understanding of the MTD program, because people kind of access us that way through that directly, and then can get referred on to more long-term care services. So our caseload has increased just even in the last 10 years. We were averaging about, on just Title 19 case management services, we're usually about 94, 95 cases a month to, we're now at 120. And then that's not counting the family caregiver support respite and the MTD numbers, which are in addition to that. And the expectation is that the MTD program is going to likely expand more, because they're going to be opening that up to individual providers where it's not just agency providers. And so we anticipate more folks within Klickitat County, because it allows for a higher asset to qualify for the service. And with it not being restricted to just agency providers, that they'll have access to individual providers, there's an expectation that we're going to have an increased caseload there. So in terms of anticipating those changes, and in terms of the numbers that I have within my budget, I've got sufficient to cover that, to make that transition. It will also make it easier to recruit and hire for that position.
Questions?
I'm the guy that rubs two nickels together,
Mhm.
but I say yes.
Yeah, and I would just say historically, I understand in terms of when, my budget,
You gave me
and
two
it's,
nickels.
and it's, know that when there's issues where cuts have to be made, I've made those cuts in the past where necessary, and I understand
That's to
that.
me,
yeah.
you've done more than your share, as far as I'm concerned. And I look at this one as, okay, fine, this person is essentially, you might as well say part-time this and part-time that, so that we can get out of paying benefits, and that's really not fair. So.
Yeah, and this one, actually, the benefits have been paid, so that's not changing. It's going to be basically 2 days a week more of actual time. But in terms of the time I'm spending, that should be on pursuing grants and other funding opportunities too. It doesn't make sense financially what my rate of pay is at that either, so.
I am supportive with always the caveat is, as the, in the future,
Right.
if they roll back Title 19
Right.
funding and there isn't, and you've always been very good about that you understand that if the dollars leave and we have to scale back, we have to.
And I'm very upfront with staff, people that are hired in my department and positions, that, our department is primarily grant funded, and federal and state funds that we do have cycles too, where it's kind of feast or famine. And
You've
so.
been through a famine or two.
Always seems
More
like
famines
we-
than feast, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that one, so that would be addressing, a change in the org chart to change that from a 0.6 FTE to 1 FTE for case managers. So will be 1 full-time in Goldale, 1 in White Salmon.
Mr. Chair, are you okay with that?
Yep. I'm just letting everybody have their say.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. Of course, under the impression that so long as we have the funding, we can do it.
Okay.
But also, spending 300 hours of your time on case management, that's difficult when there's an entire business to run. So.
She's got an easy one, because my answer was really pertinent to the second ask, which she hasn't even asked yet. So she probably knows where I'm going on that one. So yeah, she got an easy.
Would you like to move on to the second one?
Yeah, so the second one, and it's kind of been an issue that's come up off and on I think since I've been here though too, where we've had a part-time or a casual position that we hire somebody into, and then we have another casual position and they're a really good employee and they're like, oh, okay, I need hours, I'll work in that position, and they do a great job in both environments, but then are kind of in a point where they're basically working full-time, but they get no benefits, no perks, nothing for that. So specifically, one of the areas that we had struggled with hiring was our part-time cook position, not getting like 0 applicants for extended periods and really struggling. We actually got a really great person in there. And then, but they're also somebody that wants really full-time work in that too. So our part-time cook is also working as a casual driver, doing part-time driving so that they're getting full hours, but then they have no benefits. So they are actively, obviously looking at positions potentially that may offer full-time with benefits. And so my request was in terms of looking at, because definitely my department, we're used to doing allocations of funds and job costing to different programs and grants and services, that it is something that would be doable for us to be able to split if we were able to provide, benefits for this person, that we could allocate those costs to the different programs and have sufficient funds in those to do so at this time, and whether that was something that would be allowable within, and if this has come up at all before where there's other departments that have faced having somebody that's doing couple casual positions, and yet they're working full-time, but they're not getting really any benefits.
Have you taken this through our HR department, and how do they feel about that?
So, we've had past discussions. When I say past, that would have been years ago, probably pre-Randy. And then I just briefly had mentioned something to Casey kind of about it, but had addressed it, whether this was something for us that we could look at more formally, or if it was going to be dependent on each department's budget, and how I could look at moving forward with that.
I think this is something that I hope does not become somewhat normal. But if we do get into some kind of crazy recession, you might find other employees working part-time receptionist in one office, part-time receptionist in another office to get a full week's pay. And then you have the benefit issues out of that. So I don't know. I just, when somebody's working, yeah.
And like this position has to pay, they pay into PERS because the PERS benchmark is pretty low.
Right.
So they're paying into PERS and that, which is great, but they don't get sick, vacation, holiday, or medical. And potentially have the ability of somebody that you see is a very good work performer and very capable, and then could lose them on to some other positions that are offering those kind of options.
In a worker's market.
Yes.
We would request that before you get verbal, that maybe Sherry sit down and talk to us about this, so we can work with, there's a few concerns we're not sure yet. I feel like discussing it.
Yeah, I would be curious, because I don't see any analysis as far as what the cost would be.
Mhm.
What's the difference between, it's not the wages, it's the benefits. And
Yeah,
I know that's,
no, I mean, and
that's a
that-
substantial, we offer very rich benefits.
Mhm.
And so I just want to have my eyes open as far as, typically I would say, if the person is basically working full-time, they should be entitled to the same benefits. But in this case, they're in two jobs,
Right.
basically.
And then there might not be funding sufficient in those, but in this instance, like one particular nutrition program wouldn't necessarily support the benefits, but if they're dividing those between two, programs that I'm able to bill out into, they're being allocated differently. Again. and
I'm at
not-
least open to, because I
Okay.
would agree with that as far as if
So
you're. okay
discussion with
Yeah.
HR.
I'm open, but when we look at these things, thinking about what Commissioner Christopher brought up, I think we have a little bit of fleshing out to do about what the potential, like, this would be making a precedent that could have pretty expensive cost into the future. So I just think we got to figure it out. So if you would meet with Rob and Casey on this, I think that'd be the right way to go. No back page?
I flipped it over. There's nothing there.
Only 2 acts today.
No, just, this is.
Is this enough?
That's enough for one day.
She'll be back next week.
And just reminding everybody that there is a public meeting down at the Pioneer Center tonight regarding for the Regional Transportation Council to get feedback on human service, public transportation needs. And we had our one in Goldendale last week. We had 2 people come, which that's better than none. But and then there is online survey and some paper surveys to go out for folks to give feedback regarding that, because that does go into kind of decision-making and ability to apply for grants and services in terms of looking at what's needed in that too. So that starts at 5 at the Pioneer Center.
I would like to, so I got your email on the fixed route ridership way back when. Are you, and the last one was in March, so I don't have, April and May. What are you seeing in ridership levels?
It's steadily increasing. I wouldn't be able to say specifically how I can send you updated numbers, but we
Okay.
definitely, we always see a spike in the kind of spring, summer, fall, early fall months, and especially on the west end. We've definitely seen huge spikes before in, usually August has been probably one of the biggest areas that we would see on the west end. But we've definitely seen, steady growth. And I know Kathy Fitzpatrick, who's like the mobility manager with MCHED and for Gorge TransLink, was kind of surprised about how ours was bouncing back after the shutdown, because other public transit agencies aren't seeing that. But there's no rhyme or reason on any given day though, too. So like one time you'll have 18 people and then they can do a whole route and have like none. So it's, but there's definitely increase, and we anticipate that's gonna continue to increase through the summer. And then we usually will see, a decline when we start getting into later fall, winter months. There's a bit slower times there. So we do see spikes through the spring, summer months. And then especially there's the Gorge Pass that's being promoted, Gorge Transit Pass, which is the one that you can get as an adult. It's $40. You can ride all the public fixed route transits in the Gorge, which is ours, Link in the Dalles, Cat and Hood River, Columbia Gorge Express into Portland, and then Skamania County down in all the way into Vancouver. So they're doing a
That's
lot of
for what,
promotion of that.
$40 for what time period?
For a whole year.
So I pay $40 and I can ride
You can
all
ride
the
any of
transit
those,
anywhere.
the fixed routes. So not dial a ride where you call,
Right,
but
right.
the
no.
fixed route buses, you can ride, you can get on as many times as you
Huh.
want through 2022 for that
Well,
$40.
if the price of gas
Normally
keeps
it's a
going up.
buck a fare though, right?
Yeah, and some transits are $1.50 to $2. So, but you would have to pay, each time you connect on theirs, and then like ours, it would be usually every stop, but you get that pass and you can ride unlimited off and on and connect on all those. So you wouldn't have to pay a fare each time you connect. So you could use that pass and go all the way into Portland if you wanted.
So
You can carpool to work.
asking about the ridership numbers, I mean,
Uh-huh.
so that is like, is that, so you said you used to have to pay at each stop, right? Is that what you said? Like
Right now, like if you don't have a pass, you
Mhm.
do pay $1 each time you get on the bus.
when you get on, but that's when you get on to when you get off.
Boardings.
That's not.
It's
so that's
boardings.
One
Yes.
stop or
So
10 stops.
So your ridership is just based on boardings. That's
Boardings,
not number
correct.
of people.
Correct.
Have you ever done any studies? Because if you have, like in Goldendale, say 150 boardings in a month, how many actual different riders would you say that is?
Yeah, we're not tracking who's on and off. I mean, we could do that in our dial-a-ride because those are made by individual people and the destinations are, we can also determine the destinations. Right now, we do know the stops that more people get on at, but we don't do any kind of evaluations of where people are getting off or how many different individuals. It's strictly people getting on and either using a pass or paying a fare.
Okay, so do you have an idea about what percentage of people are using this to commute to work?
We also don't ask, where are you going? I mean, we would anecdotally be able to, our drivers have conversations with a number of passengers. And just in terms of folks that we know that are using it, to go into work. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to say how many.
Because, you just.
And
think
that's part of the surveys that we do for, the RTC and the transportation. It does ask, those surveys are asking riders and people different, but we're not asking each time a passenger's getting on and that too. And
So I guess where I'm going with that is if there's surveys that we can correlate some information, because at some point we're going to have to make a solid case in the future if a recession hits or something, and we're looking at the cost that the county pays, as well as total costs. If you have 150 riders in the Goldendale area and they're using it for commuting, okay, so it's 150 boardings a day. That would be 7.5 people if they worked a normal 5 days a week. If you divide that in two again, if they take it both ways, you're looking at four individuals is all that would technically be riding that, which I think it's more than that. But we need to have those difficult discussions that need to be backed up by numbers, with some hopefully anecdotes from your drivers to say, what are we getting for how much money we are spending, especially as the price of diesel goes through the roof.
I would think you're gonna have to break it down by regions too, because when you're looking at White Salmon Bingen, yeah, they might be taking it to work. When you're looking at Goldendale, it's probably more somebody going into the Dalles to go shopping, kind of a scenario. So you're gonna have a different flavor based on where you're at.
yeah, and we had, the goal was, a lot of people have to go into the Social Security office even because they're going in person. That's part of what it isn't just work, but it is accessing some of those services that they.
Well, and, I guess I see it as if you're doing 150 trips a month, and you're on the road however many days, can those people somehow use dial-a-ride, and can we save money just doing it that way rather than having an empty bus sitting there idling or driving
Yeah.
around empty?
Well, and I think the intent with the fixed route though too was to reduce some of the demand on the dial-a-ride because it is actually adds up to be more expensive in terms of being able to do, and we're not doing direct workforce. We don't, there's no way for us to be able to take your job. Certainly if we're taking people for a medical appointment and we can add people on to ride with those dial-a-rides, and that's often how people were getting to other destinations, was going on a trip with a dial-a-ride passenger as well. But that really limited the time frame. So the idea was to capture more people that could use it to access work or looking for employment, and that too at the main population centers. So and in situ, initially was actually using our service a lot with their employees getting to their different work sites on the west end. And they were buying, they contributed, specifically purchased money that covered passes for that. And the Gorge Pass is actually part of what was making up to help because those gorge passes, they've really promoted with kind of Portland people buying those. They're not necessarily utilizing our service on this end, but we get the revenue from those gorge pass revenues to be able to use to support our match for our grant.
Okay. Any questions, Director Carter?
No, is there any more, there was some discussion about, as they did last year, using the Parks and Rec District, having people access the Hood River swimming pool in the summer and using our, right, to get, kids getting on there and being able to go over to Hood River. Has there been any more talk about that? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, right now, what they've been working with is CAT and WAGAP regarding the passes, to be able to get some discounted passes for folks, because there is a part of the Gorge Pass program, they developed a program where people can contribute and get free passes for low-income families as well, and they have had
Free
things like,
transportation passes.
yeah, those gorge
Oh, okay,
passes that would be able to use
Not
on
swimming
our,
pool
our
passes.
route. Not swimming pool passes,
Okay.
the transit
Cities are giving
passes.
out free swim
That's what I thought the
And
cities
so
were.
they're checking into, they're working with and connecting with WAGAP, because we had designated like WAGAP as the entity that would be most in
Yeah.
need of, kind of distributing kind of passes for low-income families and folks in need. For our area, because Next Door does it for like Hood River, for CAT. So CAT is actually, they were talking with them about that, because I think last year, a number of people did ride to get over to the pool. So what we'll just want to do is, be able to communicate with people what are the times that's going to work with those connections. Because there has been a little bit more of a chance, CAT has tended to change their routes quite a bit more than we do. And so making sure that there's a way that they're gonna be connect up to get onto that one, to then get over to the pool. Because we're part of our work with like Link and CAT and that too was once,
Coordinate those.
because initially when we started the route, we were having to do quite a few stops in the Dalles until Link started their service going. And then it was like, okay, the idea is that we connect up with them and then people get on that bus and get around the Dalles. So we're not making 50 stops, in the Dalles, that people want to get around there, they get on Link for that. And then the same is kind of with CAT. We have a few main connections, but if they're wanting to get more around Hood River, they get on, CAT. So right now, they're discussing just how those passes, how they can get some free or discounted passes for some of the low-income families that might want to access that for the pool.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And then we don't run on weekends, so that's the issue, is that,
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
there is a gentleman named Wes Long on your Zoom. I'm assuming that's Fire Chief 3.
Chief Long, are you there?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just thought I'd pop on and real quick. I did have a conversation with Jeff King just shortly ago.
We're all ears there, Chief Long.
I think because Jeff is working on this for you guys, it'd probably be more appropriate that he just summarize unless there's something direct for me.
Director King, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I'm on the phone with Fire District 13 Chief at this time.
Okay. Well, why don't you stay on the phone with him and we'll hear from Mr. Long while you're on the phone with District 13.
I just got off the phone with Chief Long. Oh, yes, I see him on now.
Okay.
So I
was
guess
there a question for me, I guess?
not for you, Mr. King. I have a question for Mr. Long. And my question for him is, would he have a problem with postponing the burn ban until July 1st?
Commissioners, it seems we're in a conundrum because of the weather, something that none of us can control, and I understand that. Speaking on behalf of my fire district, I can't speak for the other chiefs, and nor will I, but I do not agree with making a change with the actual burn date for several reasons. I know that puts people in a bit of confusion, but I think the greater good is to leave it alone. And the reason being is for community understanding and education. And this is an anomaly year. I just believe that it's not a wise thing to do. However, and I do understand that there's code involved. I've talked to District 8's Chief Gimblin on the topic as soon as yesterday. Should the board choose to make the change, I'll support that. Obviously, you guys are the authority having jurisdiction, but I think the greater good is annually in the 3 zones, our citizens have come, at least for the most part, to understand that by this date, no matter what the weather is, I need to have my vegetation burned. Code doesn't support it, but in the long term, I think it would behoove our county if we got to the point where we could define recreational burning. And in cases like this, when it's wet and a property owner chooses to have recreational burning, certainly they could do that safe as the day is long, and then it would make it more clear and give clarity. We're not there yet. My other concern is with moving the burn ban dates is what effects that may have on the sheriff's office and so on. So to answer your question with your short question with the long answer, I don't support it. However, if the commissioners choose to make that change, I'll support that decision. Any questions?
Chief Long, this is Commissioner Anderson. Based on the conditions on the ground, not on the education and outreach. We know we got to update the code. It's on our plan to-do list. Treating recreationals on our to-do list. The conditions on the ground itself, would July 1st make more sense or June 15th?
I think July 15th is stretching it because Mother Nature will put the sun on us, and when she does, we're going to have a higher than normal propensity to be chasing grass fires because of the fuel load. So July 1st would be more appropriate. Yes.
Yeah. I said June 15th today's.
You said July 1st.
Yeah.
July 15th,
Oh,
so
my bad.
no confusion.
Okay, but you think in terms of actual on the ground conditions, July 1 would not be horrible?
I think that would be a better choice than July 15th.
Okay.
Yes.
Director King, your other conversations?
You still got time if he needs them. I just didn't want Mr. Long to be on the
Yeah.
Zoom longer than he had to be.
If,
Hello? Yeah,
Yep.
yes. Can you hear me?
yep, we can hear you.
Okay. In the democratic process that we've created today, I guess we have a split decision. In my conversations with all 4 chiefs in Zone 3, I have 2 that oppose changing it and 2 that are in favor of changing it to July 1st. That's what I've been able to determine in the last half hour or so.
If I may make a comment appropriately.
Yes, you may, Chief Long.
I'm not absolutely against the idea because of, just like Commissioner Anderson, you said, the current conditions. I hesitate to make the changes because of education. Now, that said, it could possibly be 3-1. I'm not waffling here. I'm just saying that the board has the jurisdiction of authority on the topic. Should you choose to make that change, I'll support that. And July 1st would be the better of the 2 options, in my opinion. Hope that helped you.
So Chief Long, I'll kind of talk about what I see it as is that, a lot of people haven't been able to burn because it's been so wet. I know I've tried multiple times and had failing success at certain times based on my availability to burn. And then knowing that we don't have the recreational ability, I mean, people are going to burn whether there's a ban or not. We know people in Klickitat County. And so talking about the sheriff's department, if we know that we reset the date to July 1, at least we're not going to be expending resources on the sheriff's side, chasing around every campfire.
I do not disagree with you, sir. But I think this is an opportunity to embrace some work that may need to be done in the county in the future to alleviate these conversations should another wet spring roll around or early fall or that sort of thing. I'm not a fan of telling a property owner what he or she can or cannot do on their property. So I do understand where you're coming from. As far as will fire carry right now, I have to be honest with you. I've seen 3 of them. They're not going to be large fires, but in the canopy, underneath the canopy, fire will carry at this point. It just depends on where you're at.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And thank you, Director King, for doing all those phone calls in such a short amount of time. I think the decision is up to the board. I would entertain a motion if anybody would like to make one, or if we want to do nothing.
Yeah, I need a minute to chew.
Yeah.
All right, we can move on.
I don't necessarily want to move on and think about something else, but I just want to think about that one in my brain for about 30 seconds.
Your 2 o'clock is on, yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, we will deal with this. Thank you, Chief Long. We're going to come back to this after our next couple of meetings.
Mr. King present us with a document so that he can then go back. I think he's on vacation today and we're keeping it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I heard my name, but I didn't hear anything else. I can't hear Commissioner Christopher. Is his mic on?
Yeah, his mic's on.
No,
He
I
mumbling.
was talking to the chairman. Are you supposed to be in the office today or are you supposed to be on vacation today, sir?
Was not in the office today. No, sir.
So my statement to the chairman was if we have anything further for you, whether you can send a new resolution over so that it's here if we so choose to sign it, and then you can go back out of the office versus having to hang around our Zoom meeting for the rest of the day. So that was my recommendation, is to release you from duty today.
Miss Clerk of the Board.
You could just rescind the original resolution and he could have one ready for next Tuesday to extend it. By rescinding the other one,
Just the date goes
then it
away.
back to where there's no bird ban, which Jeff had mentioned earlier in the morning.
Oh.
Right, but my case then is if we sign it next week, don't we have to give 2 weeks from when we sign it next week before it goes into effect, which won't be the 1st. Jeff, does it need to be posted for 2 weeks if we sign a new resolution next week?
There is no legal requirement for that. That is just our practice.
Good enough.
That's good to know.
Good to know.
Okay,
So yeah, that's what I would agree with them. Send a resolution over next week and
Jeff, you go back to doing what you need to do. Thank you for taking your personal time to be a part of this discussion. As always, you go above and beyond, and we respect that. We are going to move on right now to the Columbia River Gorge Commission Executive Director, Christina Wolanowski, and the Commissioner Sandra Clark for their quarterly update. I apologize for being a little late and running behind.
No problem. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Christina Volnikowski. I'm the Executive Director for the Columbia River Gorge Commission. And today I'm also joined with Lisa Noss-Cook, and I'm not sure she can turn her camera on. We will be making a joint presentation today. Gorge Commissioner Clark was not at our Gorge Commission meeting, which we just finished. So I'm not sure if she's going to be able to join us this afternoon or not. I have not heard back from her that she confirmed for this meeting, so I'm hoping that everything's okay, but I'll circle back with her after our call today. Is Lisa on? Lisa, are you on? I apologize. I think because of the delay, there must have been some glitch here. So one moment, let me just text her. I wanted to give you an update today about our climate change action plan and where we are with developing that. We are in a public review period right now. And we do have a PowerPoint, but Lisa's the one who is supposed to be driving that one. So I apologize for a few minutes delay. I'm not sure why she's not joining at the moment. I just texted her. In terms of any other updates, commissioners, do you have any questions about anything else that you have any concerns about before Lisa can join us?
Christina, I think what we'll do is we'll have Commissioner Christopher share his screen with the action plan on it and he can drive it.
Oh, that would be great.
We get there.
Yeah, give us a second.
Sure.
All become experts.
That wasn't it.
Yeah, it is. That sure looks like it.
Does it look like it?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. You just let him know when he needs to scroll down.
Okay, that'd be great. So what I wanted to do today, as soon as Lisa can join us, she can take over. But when we did the Gorge 2020 management plan revision, which as a matter of fact, yesterday was completely over the finish line with all the revisions in the management plan, as well as all 6 county ordinances being approved and concurred with the Forest Service and Secretary of Agriculture. So we're very happy that we've been able to close up the loops with that process, and we're very happy with the revisions that were passed. But one of the revisions that we made was to add a chapter to the management plan, which covers directing the staff to do a climate change action plan that falls within the responsibilities of the Gorge Commission. So what we wanted to do today is to talk about the purpose of the action plan, what the scope is, what our approach is, and then how anyone from the public can comment on the action plan. And then we want to leave a little bit of time for questions and any content that you might want to share with us, and then how we are going to be addressing the public comments moving forward. Next slide. So we are working closely with the 4 Columbia River Treaty Tribes, and we've already had meetings with the Yakama Nation. We have an upcoming meeting with Umatilla, and then also the other 2 tribes, the Warm Springs and the Nez Perce. And we are consulting with them on a staff-to-staff level at this point. Many of the tribes have already developed their own climate change action plans, and we are reviewing those and then consulting with them related to how we can incorporate some of the concepts that they have on their lands as far as the National Scenic Area. Next. So we know the boundaries of the National Scenic Area, and we just provide this slide for people that are joining that may not necessarily know the full extent of the 85 miles of the National Scenic Area that covers the 6 counties. Next. Okay, and I see that Lisa has joined us. So I wanted to introduce Lisa Nas-Cook. She is our vital sign indicators planner and has also been the co-author of the Climate Change Action Plan. And I want to turn the presentation over to her since she is the lead on this effort. So Lisa, welcome, and please go ahead and take over.
Lisa,
I
this
think,
is Commissioner Christopher. Do you want me to unscreen share so you can take over on your share, or do you want me to keep scrolling?
What's easier for you? I'm happy for you just to keep going if that's
Either
okay.
way works for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can manage. So thank you. And yeah, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. Is it a little ahead of schedule? Perhaps I had 2:30. So I apologize. Thank you, Christina, for jumping in, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing us this opportunity to talk with you. Really excited to be here. So yeah, I will just kind of build off of what Christina has shared. And so when we think about anything that we do, and in particular this climate change action plan, we're grounding our intent in the two purposes of the National Scenic Area Act. So this is just a reminder to all who are joining us today that there are two purposes. And the first is to protect scenic, cultural, recreation, and natural resources. And the other is to protect and support the economy of this area by encouraging growth to occur within existing urban areas, and then allowing future economic development outside of those areas as consistent with resource protection. So we're keeping in mind all of these things, and all of these resources and values are what has shaped those things that have emerged as priorities within the climate change action plan that we'll share with you in just a minute. You can go ahead. Thank you. So just a quick overview of the timeline. Some of you may have been closely involved with the management plan revision process over the last 4 to 5 years. Others maybe not so much. So this is just a quick overview slide that shows that when the National Scenic Area Act was established and this area created in 1986, and then the first management plan adopted in 1991, while there was some awareness of climate change and some discussion, it was not top of mind as it is, so to speak, for many people today. So several decades later, we have heard from lots of different people in the community and different stakeholders that we needed to be more explicit in how we're considering climate change and actually addressing it in the management plan. That was a theme that came out of Gorge 2020 management plan revision. And so out of that, we created a climate change chapter that was adopted in the plan. And that chapter has a policy that directs the Gorge Commission to develop a climate change action plan. So that is what our guidance is and why we're here today describing this plan to you. And we have been working on it over the last year or so. Next slide. So a couple of words about the scope of the plan. Christina mentioned and just showed you the administrative boundary of the National Scenic Area that spans 2 states and 6 counties. That is our geographic scope. We recognize that influences of climate change and a lot of other factors that affect trends in the National Scenic Area are outside of that boundary, right? But for us, the types of actions that we're considering, we're really focused on our role as a land use agency and working with partners, but also just really trying to think about what ties to our management plan within that administrative boundary. So that's our geographic scope. And in terms of the types of actions, we're looking at 2 main kind of buckets. The first is adaptation. So what are the types of things that we can do to manage and deal with the impacts of climate change? And then the second main one are what are some of the things that we can do? And often these are very much supportive actions because we are not an agency that regulates greenhouse gas emissions, for example. But what can we do to support actions that reduce the causes or sources of climate change, that being very closely linked with mitigating or trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's what GHG stands for there. And then at the intersection of that, thinking about ways that we can protect carbon storage. And I'll point out here that we're talking about sequestration and storage and not managing forest practices. That's not our authority to actually regulate those when we think about forests as a major habitat that does sequester carbon. And there's a lot of research on different ways that forest practices and can actually help enhance carbon storage. we're interested in that conversation. We're talking with both DNR and ODF about that, but just wanted to say off the bat here that a reminder that the Gorge Commission does not actually regulate forest practices within the National Scenic Area. That is subject to the two state forest practices acts. Next slide. So some of the priorities that we have, the process that we used, we started with the management plan, guided from the act, and we looked at over 30 different resources and values in the management plan. Here in the bulleted list are just some of the examples. So everything from thinking about forestry, which is a protected land use in our plan, and agriculture as well, all the way to those SNCRs or the scenic, natural, cultural, recreation resources that you may all be familiar with. So thinking about economic impacts, thinking about scenic views, recreation, all of that. And from that bigger list, we use these factors here in these squares to try to help narrow down, to think about, there's so much that needs to be done, but what can we do within our role and authority at the Gorge Commission? And we first looked at that risk and opportunity question. So what's the greatest risk of doing nothing? And what is the greatest opportunity for us to affect the actual condition of a particular resource? That links to the commission authority. That was a big factor in prioritizing these down. Thinking about equity, and here we're thinking about this in terms of marginalized communities, and maybe those that we haven't heard from as much in the past, especially our responsibilities to the treaty tribes. We're thinking about tribal treaty rights, but also just bringing more diverse voices to the table. So spanning east to west across the Gorge communities, and thinking about how we can better engage with rural communities and landowners as well. So that's all part of our equity consideration when we thought about different actions and what we wanted to prioritize. And the last one here, partnerships. We have a pretty small staff and we have a pretty ambitious plan. And so we recognize there's already a lot of good work happening, and we really want to try to leverage partnerships and support work that others are doing and align our goals wherever we can. Next slide. So from those over 30, we narrow it down to these 8. And for those of you that want to spend a little more time looking at the plan, all of these have a summary page in the executive summary at the beginning of the plan, and then are discussed in more detail in part 3. So we have 4 main ones under the adaptation umbrella, and those are cold water refuge streams and riparian habitats, wetlands, tribal treaty rights, and specifically starting out with culturally important plants, which we've heard a lot about from folks through our planning and our review committee. And then oak woodlands and deer and elk winter range. Those are both 2 protected priority habitats in the management plan, and they also overlap across the landscape to a significant extent, which is why we kind of have lumped those together as a topic. And then on the mitigation side of thinking about greenhouse gas reduction, we have regional transportation, electric vehicle infrastructure, carbon storage, and fire risk. And for the transportation pieces, our role is largely on these topics convener, thinking about how we can support existing regional efforts that are ongoing. So I'm happy to talk more about those if there's specific interests in any of these, but the 3 that we wanted to focus on with you today, given what we think some of your interests are in Klickitat County, and also just the land base, the fact that you have some higher levels of oak in particular, we're going to highlight the cold water refuge streams and riparian habitats, oak woodlands, and then fire risk. And we're happy to go into any of the other ones that you would like to during question and answer, or stop us along the way. But I just wanted to say up front that those are the 3 in the interest of time that we thought we'd highlight just some examples of actions for. And I just got 1 or 2 more slides, and then I'd like to pause for some clarifying questions before we move forward. Thank you. So if you go to this next one, Christina mentioned that my job title, my main role is working with this vital sign indicators program. And if you're not familiar with this, the effort dates back over a decade, but for a variety of reasons didn't move forward as they had hoped. And so we're revitalizing that right now. And it's a long-term monitoring effort to essentially look at the health of the entire National Scenic Area across different resource areas that we manage to see how well we're meeting the goals of the management plan. That's a joint program with the Forest Service. And because of the timing of the development of the Climate Change Action Plan, with our fresh look at this and streamlining this effort, they're very integrated. And so we're looking at ways that we can plug into partners and existing data that can help us track how well we're doing with this climate change action plan and some of these efforts as part of VSI program. So I just wanted to mention up front that we've got a measurement or evaluation framework linked to this plan, and you'll be able to see that in part 4 if anyone wants to go into detail in the draft plan. Next slide. So this is kind of the last overview, and then I'll pause for questions before we dive into some examples. Just wanted to point out those 2 broad objectives for adaptation and mitigation. From those flow several specific goals, and we tried to be at the request of the commission as time-bound and measurable, specific as possible. So for each of these 8 priority topics, we have specific goals, and then we have strategies for those goals and priority actions for each of those. And we're again going to highlight a few for you today. So with that, I'll just pause if there's any clarifying questions on anything that we've shared so far.
Any questions?
I'll hold mine till the end.
All right, go ahead, Lisa, continue on.
Okay, thank you, Chair Anderson. So you can go ahead to the next slide. So starting us off with one of our aquatic habitat focus areas, we spent some time in Gorge 2020 learning about cold water refuge streams. And when we use this term, we're referring to these cold pockets at the confluence, the areas where some of these streams and rivers in the National Scenic Area meet the main stem Columbia. And as some of you may know, the Columbia is getting warmer due to a variety of factors, land use changes, as well as climate change. And so migrating salmon and steelhead are increasingly relying on these refuges, these cold pockets of water, to escape what are, during the hottest parts of the month, sometimes lethal temperatures for them. And so during Gorge 2020, we worked a lot with EPA and other state agencies to learn more. And at that time, the Columbia River Cold Water Refuges Plan was put out by the EPA. So this goal and a lot of these actions kind of tier to that effort, and we're working with those entities right now on the monitoring framework. But our goal here is really to make sure that we are doing what we can to protect cold water. So by 2040, making sure that the summertime water temperatures on these 10 streams that you're seeing here highlighted in blue are meeting or trending towards the standards that are set forth in the cold water refuges plan, and now in an actual temperature TMDL plan for the Columbia. So it's worth pointing out that 12 of the most important primary tributaries for cold water refuge in the lower Columbia, 10 of those 12 are located within the National Scenic Area. So this is why the commission is very interested in this topic and thinking about what we can do. Some of the examples here, we've heard from some partners, especially those doing larger scale restoration work, like out at Steigerwald and floodplain reconnection and such, that, you know, it can be costly and take a lot of time and consultation with Forest Service staff and our staff for enhancement permits. So we want to look at some different policy options, different ways that we might be able to reduce barriers in the permitting process for the kinds of work that we'd really like to see more done, both in the aquatic realm, and I'll talk about that a little bit more with fuels reduction projects too when we get to fire risk. The second here, monitoring stream temperatures and flow, we definitely want to know what the trends are. And right now there's a lot of, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge in terms of the different monitoring happening. There's a lot happening, but it's not on all of these streams and it's not in a coordinated fashion. So we're playing a role in convening a group to develop a comprehensive look at temp and flow on these streams. We're also just, wherever we say we're considering a requirement or a policy, what that's going to look like is staff developing some policy options to share with the commission, and then they will deliberate and decide. This action plan, I'm not sure if you mentioned that at the very beginning, Christina, but the action plan itself is a non-regulatory document. What it does is it provides us with the framework and serves as our guide to identify those topics where we want to do additional policy work. So in order for there to actually be a change that would affect a county ordinance that would be of interest to the counties, is we would have to be proposing a change to the management plan during the next review and revision, or some kind of an amendment, but it would have to take place within that framework. So yeah, go ahead. So some of those options are just things like riparian planting, encouraging that, thinking about stream buffers, but that's one of many different things that can help to protect temperature. So for oak woodlands, one of the changes in Gorge 2020 is that oak woodlands is actually a priority habitat for general management areas. It used to be a priority habitat for just the special management areas that the Forest Service is responsible for. So oak, we recognize that it might seem like there's quite a bit in the scenic area, and especially in Klickitat County. Overall, across the region of the Northwest, we've lost a lot of our oak. But here we have quite a bit, and it's relatively, intact, but this is also the area where there's a lot of potential for land use change and development. And if you are familiar with the East Cascades Oak Partnership, we're a member of that broad partnership effort, but we work a lot with them to think about ways that we can support oak enhancement projects and protect high quality oak on private lands through incentives, through best management practices, through connecting landowners with resources. Those are some of the things that we want to do for this in a support role, but we're also thinking about other policy options that we can use to protect oak. And that's kind of reflected here in this goal around by 2025, that we would have more information, partly through monitoring, that we can really understand where the critical corridors for oak woodlands and winter range are, so that those are mapped, and then we can develop these policy options to provide to the commission. And something that's new here that we love to hear your feedback on, by 2030, we have established this preliminary goal in this draft plan that there would be no net loss of oak woodland acres or function. And in order to be able to know if there's no net loss, you have to have a good sense of where the oak are and how they're doing. And right now, we have a comprehensive oak layer that comes from East Cascades Oak Partnership. It's based on model data at this point. So we really see a need to better understand the connectivity piece, but also how these are functioning. And that's one thing that we're prioritizing with our work with the partnership effort. So that's really central to this work and focus on oak woodlands. Next slide. Thank you. So fire risk is something that affects us all. I know in Klickitat County that this is something that you are thinking about often, especially in the last couple of summers where it has been really dry. We're having a very wet spring, but that can also mean that we're increasing the fuel load. And so we'll see what happens in the next couple of months. But we know that overall in the West, there's this trend of increased intensity of wildfire. And so we are working closely with the Forest Service to do what we can to accelerate fuels reduction treatments. And I'm not sure if you get regular updates from them too, but they have really upped their fuels reduction within the national scenic area. And where they normally have about an average of 350 to 400 acres treated in the scenic area a year, they're on target right now to have at least 3,000 acres treated through next year. And this is largely due to House Bill 762 and then the counterpart in Washington increased funding that's come into the region. So that's good news. Some of these other examples of actions are things that we've heard from some stakeholders. This supporting partners coming to agreement on forest closure criteria. This is something the Gorge Commission does not have the authority to close forests. That's Forest Service and then other land managers. But we hear sometimes some concern about, well, we'd like to see them closed during red flag days, or what's the rationale. And so to the extent that we can advance that conversation and work with the Forest Service as a co-manager to try to help facilitate some agreement on when forest closures will occur and how to share that information with the public. This is something that we are interested in supporting. This third example here is something that falls under VSI, the monitoring effort. Right now, there is a lot of fuels reduction happening on both sides of the river. And you may be familiar with DNR's, they have a forest health tracker, an online system that shows where different forest health treatments and fuels reduction and fire is occurring. However, we don't really have a coordinated way to track right now across both states and the 6 counties and really our unique geography of the scenic area. So we're working with some partners to see what might be possible in that realm, because we'd really like to be able to show progress. And also this can be really helpful for partners to be able to leverage additional funds by showing where treatments are happening adjacent to where they want to do more work. So we're hoping that maybe that could be a value add to our partners as well by helping to create that tracking mechanism. And then lastly here, we are a member of the Washington Fire Adapted Learning Communities Learning Network. We would love to try to support where people are interested in different communities, increasing the number of fire adapted communities within the gorge. That again is an example of a support role and not anything regulatory, but fire adapted communities, this framework encompasses everything from firewise to thinking about smoke impacts and community readiness. It's not a one size fits all. It's just really a framework, a wheel of all of these different options. And so we just want to be able to support communities and seeing what works for them, recognizing that the entire national scenic area is really considered a wildland urban interface. And so we're all kind of united in that risk of fire across the landscape. Next slide. So just a couple things I'll close with here, and then we'd love to have a conversation with you. This is just the main parts of the action plan. And so I like to tell folks, if you're limited on time, we know that the whole document is long, and it's because it includes a lot of background information, but it's really that executive summary at the beginning, which is about 12 pages, that lays out the approach and then those 8 main priorities. And on each one of those one-pagers, they've got links, hyperlinks directly to that part of the plan, so you can look at whatever is of most interest. I'd say if you look at one thing, look at the executive summary, and then these other parts provide more background on climate impacts and different things that we looked at to narrow down to our priorities. The other part that has really serves as the bulk of the action plan is that part 3, and that's the priority actions, and we'll go into more detail on all of the different things that we're interested in getting feedback on in terms of actions. Next slide. So for all of you here today, we will be taking any feedback, questions, constructive criticism today and noting that and sharing that out to the commission. We're summarizing any work sessions that we're having with counties. And we're also in the midst of a public comment period right now through July 5th. So you may submit written comments at this, well, I guess it's on the next page. Our website is where you can download the plan. So that's the first thing if you want to download the plan. There's information on how to register for the last public information session that we have, which is Thursday, and then some additional background information. On the next slide, there we go. So the emailing the comments, we have a designated email address here. So you're welcome to submit comments in writing by July 5th. And then there's several other opportunities for people to comment if they would like to speak in front of the commission. We had one today. We'll also have one at the July 12th commission meeting and our monthly meeting in August. And it's looking like it may be that we are adopting or closer to adopting the plan in September or this fall. So really anytime that that's on the agenda as a work item, we'll also have opportunities for public comment. Next slide. So just a couple of things. We welcome all comments and we really want to hear from, as many different people as possible. And one thing that's really helpful to us as staff is, where possible, if there's something that you'd like to see different, please be specific. If there's a page number or a section or even, suggested language changes, please let us know. We welcome all of that. And one part of that that's really valuable to us is to help understand the why. So you can say that you want to see a certain thing or you don't like a certain thing, but if you can help us understand the why, that's really useful for us as we think about different options and updating the plan for the version that the commission will look at, a more finalized version. If you could go to the next slide, I think we're almost to the end here. Yeah, just that's a reiteration of thinking about the why and just some examples there that are really helpful for us in comments. You can go into the next slide. Just want to close by thanking, we've had a lot of different folks help us on a review committee that we've had over the last year. Everybody from the Land Trust, the Columbia Land Trust, and Forest Service is a key partner to the tribes and CRITFIC and some other community-based organizations have helped and had different meetings with us as well. So this list continues to grow. And we also, thank all of the counties who have invited us to talk. We really appreciate you being here. And so you're helping to shape this too through your questions and feedback. So the next one. So that's all I have by way of a specific presentation. So we'd really love to be able to have a conversation with you and answer any questions or go to any specific topics that you might like more information on. So thank you.
From my seatmates.
I'd like to go. This is Commissioner Sauter, and I believe the only commissioner that actually lives in the National Scenic Area, which is my joy and burden all at the same time. So I'm quite familiar with the management plan and its workings. And one of the questions I have is what's the plan? You stated this is a non-regulatory document or a chapter, but how are you going to integrate the climate chapter into the requirements of the overall management plan? And how does this not just turn into, and I haven't really gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, I'm still digesting it, but to understand why this doesn't just turn into management plan update part 2, where it's the things that were not dealt with in the update of the management plan. How are these goals and policies going to it's going to color stuff in the management plan as far as how those are implemented. So how is that going to work or not work?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important question. And so at this point, what we're envisioning
it's called an action plan. That action plan means it's anticipated there's going to be some actions that happen from this.
Yeah, and that's what we highlight. And so when we think about those actions, right, we consider this a guide. There are kind of 4 main types, and one of them are the policy options, right? And the actual things that in order to take effect would need to go and be incorporated into the management plan. And like you're saying, that can only happen through the management plan revision and adoption process that will happen again. We're not exactly sure when the timeline will be, but I know we just finished one. And so we're really mindful of the kind of burden potentially that can place on counties who just adopted ordinances. So that's the main way that those types of things can happen, but that's one piece of the types of actions that are in here. So there are ways to advance goals that are also going to be coming through us supporting others' efforts by voluntary actions that landowners can take, by best management practices, by gathering more information and sharing it with people. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. But if there is something, this policy work, like you're saying, the reason that the climate change action plan couldn't be done exactly during Gorge 2020 is that we had already spent, what, Christine, almost 4 years. This required additional staff capacity and time to really be able to focus on this particular topic. And so we see this more as a living document that sets us up to be able to continue to do work, revisit it. But the policy, specific policy implications are things that are going to take more staff time and have to be incorporated into future plan review. So in that sense, it is setting us up for what you mentioned. It's going to inform the next plan review. So not necessarily Gorge 2020 Part 2, that's going to happen just, next year and get everybody in that process again, but it is part of thinking about the plan and the next version of that plan. Christina, do you?
Yeah,
I
do want to add a few more, because what Lisa said at the very beginning is that it is an action plan. The plan itself is not a regulatory document, but as we go through and identify the actions that are going to be needed, these have long-term implications. And so, for example, we highlighted the cold water refugia and trying to protect our salmon habitat. And so, right now we have regulations in place. We've expanded buffers and that's already a policy. But through a whole variety of other efforts, we're also going to be monitoring whether that's effective or how effective it is. And if our policies are currently effective the way that they're already written, there's no need to change them. But by documenting and monitoring the fact that we are achieving cold water refuge for the salmon, then we're good to go. If there's something else that we will need to do in the next 10 years, and we have data to show that we need to maybe protect more buffer areas or more wetlands for the salmon, then that's something that would be discussed at the next plan review. And the plan review, as you remember, is supposed to be no more than every 5 years and no less than every 10 years. And so this is really just the beginning of this effort. And again, one of the things that was really important to emphasize that Lisa said was that as we were going through this, we wanted to make sure that we were looking at goals and strategies and outcomes that are specific to our responsibilities at the Gorge Commission. There are lots of things that impact climate that we have no jurisdiction over, nor do we want jurisdiction over it. But for the things where we do have some responsibility, we want to make sure that it's really clear what we're going to prioritize and how we're going to do it, and try to get the most appropriate actions implemented over time.
Well, here's my concern, and maybe you misunderstood. I mean, you didn't. That was an excellent, both of you, response, but it does illustrate what I'm concerned about, is that as a landowner in the National Scenic Area, in Klickitat County specifically, because as the commission is the administrator, the one that, permits are routed through the commission, my concern is once this action plan is adopted in September or shortly thereafter, that the policy implications of that will be inadvertently implemented in how permits are processed, because anything that there's any discretion about, and that doesn't really seem, it doesn't seem real transparent to me. We just went, when the updates to the management plan, which we commented on some of those, I printed out the new ones. I have a booklet that has that. I have reviewed those. I have a pretty good understanding of what activities, if I want to do them, what's allowed, what's not allowed, as far as, but now one of the frustrations with the earlier management plan was that there's all these other overlays that go on that it's not very apparent to somebody what the actual rules are. And so when I'm thinking about some activity that I want to plan on, I go to the chapter on, if I know I'm in agricultural land, I look at that. Oh, here are the things that you can do and can't do, and I can kind of make my plans around that. But then it's like, oh, well, that's actually modified by the deer and elk winter range, which is in a different section. That's an overlay, and now there could potentially, this is my concern, I'm not making a comment on whether I agree or disagree. It's about the transparency to the property owners, the private property owners in the National Scenic Area about what they can and can't do, because there will be this kind of other policy document that's out there that is, I'm sorry, I fully expect it will have an effect on how things are implemented, at least in Klickitat County, is that we will have the most ambitious implementation of these goals and policies compared to the other 5 counties. So if you can guarantee me that as long as you're doing the permitting in Klickitat County, that your staff is not going to be in the back of their mind thinking about those goals and policies that are in this action plan that has not been implemented into the management plan yet through revision, is going to have no effect on what their decisions, then I can go home and not lose any sleep over this.
Well, I'll try to answer that one. And I understand how that looks. But we just adopted the management plan, and the policies that are in the management plan are the ones that are in effect until there are any amendments. And those amendments probably are not likely for quite some time. So this action plan with implementation strategies is not a policy document. It will not be a document that tells us what to do that has any policy implication at this point that's any different than is in the management plan. What this is trying to do is to be a roadmap for us to determine, what else should we be considering, and are we already doing everything we need to be doing, or are there other things we need to consider that may need to change in the future? But the management plan is the management plan for each of the 6 counties, and all the counties should be applying the same standards and policies and guidelines. So just because we're administering the ordinance here in Klickitat County, it doesn't mean that we're applying the management plan any differently than the other counties are. So we want to make sure that you feel that there's a transparency here. I don't know how else to ensure that that it's as transparent as possible. All I know is that anything that we're doing is public. And if I may just circle back to your deer and winter range, I understand your comment about that, because we were just looking at that for some other permits, and it is interesting because it's in the plan. The new plan actually took that deer and in the winter range comments and requirements and put them in many different sections in the plan, so that when you are looking at ag land and then, oh wait, there's winter range in some other section, we've actually made it easier to navigate so that you know where that winter range is. And you can always ask us for the most updated map on that.
Right, and I do appreciate that was one of the comments that I had pushed for and suggested just for that reason. But this is 2022. The management plan was originally adopted in 91. And so there was a time, and it went through one other revision, which that wasn't that way. And those are the ones I'm aware of. And it's just things like that is, again, I'm not commenting, I'm not saying I don't believe in, or we shouldn't do any of this. It's just that the common person, so they have an understanding of what they can and can't do and the reasons why, that it's not just that it's buried all over the place, or it's not even that it's buried, that it's in the background behind the decisions that are being made about what they can do, as far as that was the reasoning why we've modified what because we need mitigation, because it's over here somewhere else. This would be easier if you were in the room. I'm sorry, I'm pointing to things.
Oh, I wish we could be there. in
Yes.
I
person.
wish we
I'm
could be
sorry that
No,
we've been
we
enjoying
all
doing
understand.
that. No, for sure. We hope maybe another time soon. But yeah, I think what I'm hearing, Commissioner Sauter, that is helpful, is that we will continue to talk as staff and really be mindful, think about how we can be very clear about the role, how the climate change action plan connects with the management plan, what it can and can't do in terms of policy. And then, yeah, continuing to think about ways that we communicate that to the landowner through the actual development review process too, with all of the county planners that we work with, to make that clear that this doesn't trump anything in the management plan. It's not changing the management plan just by being adopted as a framework by the commission. It's really our guide and a living document. And as Christina pointed out, can't affect anything in the management plan without that review process. So, but I appreciate you sharing that. And that's something that we can take with us and is valuable. And we'll think more about that, how we can communicate that and address some of those concerns around transparency.
I'd just like to focus on probably two areas. Number one, the oak woodlands. Klickitat County is home to the majority of the oak woodlands in the state of Washington.
I'm sorry, Chair Anderson, I'm having a
Sorry,
little difficulty.
it was turned off. I
Oh, that's
apologize.
okay. That's
Thank
better.
you. Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
For me, just a couple of things to mention. Number one, the oak woodlands. Klickitat County is home to the majority of the oak woodlands in Washington state. Oak woodlands are not a threatened or an endangered species in this county. It's something we have plenty of, if not getting more and more as time goes on and climate change moves. Our oak woodlands are changing location over the past 100 years. And will continue to change as climate change occurs. They will be changing location and heights in terms of heights above sea level. And when you put into your plan something that says no net loss of oak woodlands, to me that is a zero-sum game, and a zero-sum game where not knowing how climate change is going to affect the woodlands just on a climate change basis of their natural habitat as their natural habitat changes and moves throughout the entire Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. Saying no net loss of anything to me is usually pretty difficult because land uses are changing. Land uses have always changed. They changed with the weather. They changed by decade. They changed by the year. And when you say no net loss of oak woodlands, and I think of either someone trying to do a land use change that's within ag property, who's trying to change from one crop to another, and looking to remove an oak tree or two in order to have their cropping and their system be productive. When you have such simplistic statements as no net loss and no loss without mitigation, that makes things more difficult for your farmers, for your ranchers, for the people you are supposed to support, both economically as well as culturally. So I just want you to think about that. The other is with regards to your cold water habitats. I know this is, you say that this is not where you are going, that it's non-regulatory, but the honest answer is it might not be regulatory for you, but the regulatory agencies look to what you put down in your action plan and they use that for their regulatory actions. So it may not be the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area's regulatory actions in their 10-year update from now, but it could definitely be in the EPA's or U.S. Army Corps or anybody else's regulatory actions, both the state ecology, State Department of Fish and Wildlife, much sooner than that. And when you talk about cold water refugia, I went to the cold water refugia meetings with EPA down in Portland. I sat through those. And the one thing I don't see in your plan that I've come across is that we need to enhance the number of cubic meters of cold water habitat refugia. For example, you look at Herman Creek. Herman Creek is not a natural cold water refugia, just like the Wind River. Those are man-made due to man-made actions, but those man-made actions create the largest amount of cold water refugia. And then we have things like the blowing of Condit Dam, which filled in a whole lot of cold water refugia. The thing that we can do the most to assess and protect these fish is enhancing these deep, cool pockets, or potentially enhancing how those waters enter the Columbia River. So that can be done through dredging, like the mouth of the white salmon. That can be done through enhancing Herman Creek in enhancing the depth and the amount of that cold water refugia. But there's only so much area. Commissioner Christopher can talk to this probably better than anybody. Where are the fish at? Well, they're right wherever the cold water is as they're going north. And so your actions, it seems, are looking more upstream onto what other regulatory agencies are, rather than what can be done within the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area where it enters the warm water.
Yeah, thank you. So there was a lot there, and I appreciate the focus on those two topics. Just a couple things. First, to touch on with oak woodlands, you're right that it's about 55% or so by our estimates using an ECOP layer of the oak, at least within the National Scenic Area, are in Klickitat County. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk with you about that priority topic, is because we know there's a lot in your county. And with climate change, one of the reasons I didn't mention this up front, that we are also prioritizing this habitat type, is precisely because what you just mentioned, Chair Anderson, that we do know that this is a highly resilient habitat type because it is more drought tolerant and it has a shorter fire return interval. It's considered fire adapted. And so we very well may see additional oak over time, kind of moving into what would have been a different forest type. And at the same time, it's also the area, the habitat that does overlap along with grasslands, the greatest extent with areas of potential development, so developable land. So it's also very vulnerable to other land use change and conversion. So it's kind of at the intersection of both of those things. And so we're thinking about not just like in this no net loss. I appreciate all your thoughts about that, and we'll take those with us. But one example of something that we're interested in talking with folks about is if we do any kind of mitigation where we have a requirement, to be thinking about offsite mitigation as well. So for example, if there's a highway project and you're losing a few oaks there, but that's not really truly high quality habitat, are there other priority areas where could actually be enhancing oaks on those that would have a greater impact overall than right there on the site? So I think that same approach could apply for specific landowners too. So we are kind of thinking about that. Christina, did you have anything else to say about oak before I?
Yeah, and we actually did implement that exact strategy when we were doing the Courtney Road permit, because there were many oaks that needed to be removed in order to build that road for safety. But part of the mitigation plan was then to do, oak release and doing habitat enhancement in other places where it would provide really high value habitat. So when we say no net loss, we don't say no loss. We say no net loss, meaning that we want to keep that habitat intact as much as possible because of many different factors, including wildlife habitat. But we also know the reality of land use in Klickitat County, and we have at least since I've been here, looked at every way that we can protect the oaks, but still be able to issue permits and do mitigation strategies that will in fact, give us a better long-term habitat options. And so I hope you know that that's exactly the way that we worked with the Courtney Road project as well as several others. And that's the same kind of philosophy that we have in strategy for moving forward.
Thank you. This is the last thing I'll say about Coldwater Refuge Habitat. Thank you for your comments there too, Chair. Exactly what you're talking about with enhancing the deep pool pockets and some of these creative engineering solutions are things that we are learning more about through partners like the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership. They've got some innovative work happening to be thinking about how to increase the volume. And I know CritFic is interested in this as well. So there is work happening, and I hear you on that it really is about kind of the total volume is important. And so there's a lot of people putting their heads together on this, and we're interested in supporting that work. So that's kind of part of that overall topic for us too.
Any other comments from my seatmates or questions?
I would just have one more, just an observation, and I don't mean this, I don't mean to be throwing rocks, because I could have stepped up and been more engaged in this, but I was looking at your review committee and your advisors, and it's pretty heavy on, resource managers, folks that are, basically the ones that that are not the ones that are going to be burdened necessarily with the potential, eventual regulation. And I'm hopeful that there were at least some voices at the table that were more the, landowners, business folks, as far as the agricultural interests, as far as that there could be some conversation about, that's a great idea. Did you consider the impact of perhaps that on what this is going to do as far as to, agricultural interests as far as that? And again, we could have been more engaged in this. And so, the world is run by those that show up, not by, and we have all, as government folks, experienced when after everything's done, and we've been working on this for 4 years, everybody shows up and rips it to pieces. So I'm not going to be in that role. But if you can give me some comfort that there was at least some other voices at the table, that would be helpful.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. First of all, that slide doesn't have everybody. It's a sampling, but thank you. And the first thing that comes to mind, especially around agriculture and forestry. So we had a session on both of those back in the fall, a public work session around like forest resilience and looking at that as a topic, as a broad topic, and invited anybody to attend that. But for the ag, we had a 2-day ag workshop as well online. And we did hear and have engagement from vineyard owners, orchardists, we talked with some local extension agents as well. And one of our current commissioners also works for OSU Extension and is very involved with cherry growers. And so even with some of our commissioners, we're hearing some of those interests from landowners. And I know, Christina, you've recently had a meeting with and some comments from Wheat Grower Association, though we don't have a lot of wheat in the scenic area, but we definitely have been hearing from some of the voices in agriculture. And I think Commissioner Sauter, the other thing about this, unlike the management plan where we tried to get, as many different voices as we could, but if you kind of miss the boat once it's adopted, those policies are set. With this, we know that there's engagement that's going to continue beyond when they give us a thumbs up for this plan in the fall. It's not a regulatory document. It sets some of our priorities, but we envision needing to be able to engage, and especially under our equity goal, we want that to be ongoing and to be reaching out to different people that we haven't traditionally heard from as much. So if you have suggestions about others and ways that we can like kind of build that ongoing advisory group that might involve landowners, I think that we're open to different ways of doing that, but we definitely see a need. If we're going to have policy changes in the future, we're going to need to have kind of separate listening sessions, engagement opportunities to inform those other efforts. Would you say that's right, Christina, or am I
Yeah, Lisa.
going a little far there?
No, that's exactly right. And unlike Gorge 2020, where we had to have commission adoption and then secretarial concurrence, so there was kind of a hard and fast timeline. We're hoping that the commission, adopts this fall. That gives us a list of priorities for us to work on at the staff level. So as Lisa said, we had a lot of people that we reached out to and that have been engaged that weren't on that list. But this is an ongoing process. And so, we have a public comment period that's ending July 5th because we needed to have some point where we can start gathering all this information and presenting it to the commission. But there still will be lots of opportunities in the years to come to help us tweak this and make it into a usable document that will inform a future management plan review process.
I'd like to finish off and say, when I look forward, to me, the climate action plan, the biggest thing that you're probably going to be dealing with is the infrastructure. I think of Courtney Road as an example. I think of the replacement of the Hood River Bridge. I think of other large-scale infrastructure developments that, in a lot of instances, you don't have a choice where it goes. It's going to go where it has to go. And in your mitigation that you're proposing, your goal is to mitigate and adapt. You should have your mitigation expectations set straight and upfront and easily so that the people who are having to design and build this new bridge know exactly what the Gorge Commission is going to look for and want from that. And those kind of things I think could be in your, if you're going to use a climate adaptation mitigation, in essence, that should be in your action plan with expectations and what you're expecting from your cohorts who are in the public sector who are going to have to design and build these things. Whether it's the state or the feds or bi-state working groups or whatever it is.
Thank you, Chair Anderson, for that comment. As a matter of fact, at our commission meeting this morning, we did hear about progress made with the Hood River Bridge replacement project, and we've been involved with it and will continue to be involved with it in the future, especially as it starts going through the design and permitting phase.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies. It was a pleasure having you on. Lisa, good to see you again. It's been a while.
Hey,
Yeah, I hope your son is well.
He definitely is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Great.
for your time on the agenda this afternoon, and we look forward to your comments.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with 12 items, noting item number 1, the resolution of the matter of approving an increase in the hourly compensation for attorneys providing indigent defense services was amended to cover all courts and appointed indigent counsel. Also noting the consent agenda item number 2 has a revised increase amount of $1,509.68 for the Canon copiers due to request from the building department. The new total will be $264,951.42.
Yep, I'll second the motion.
There is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with all 12 items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I forgot to ask him about deer fencing.
You forever hold your peace.
Okay, bills, Mr. Chair?
Please.
was just curious why we had two.
And can you get me a copy of that as well as the checks that go with it?
Sorry, who, what?
That was Joanne.
Okay. There is payroll and AP. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve accounts payable warrants in the amount of $225,508.35 and payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $820,623.62 for the date ending June 30th, 2022.
I would second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Yeah, you're right, Ibby. One was one only.
Okay. Okay. Is that all we have for the payments? We don't have the regular? All right. Next up, board pending. Do we have anything from my seatmates for board pending?
No, I shared this morning.
All right.
Nothing but good news, so.
Nothing but good news. Next up, did you gentlemen have some time to think about the fire and Zone 3, and what do you feel like doing? If you'd like to rescind the resolution, I've got the resolution number here. If you'd like to leave it.
Where I'm at is since the fire chief are split 50-50, then it becomes down to me, to my personal opinion, and my personal opinion is it's awful wet out there. So I would be okay with rescinding the motion until, or rescinding the burn ban until July 1st.
Yeah, I would support that. I mean, it's not, the conditions on the ground are clearly, that's not the fire danger. It's the educational piece. And I don't want to discount that, is that we are trying to get people in the habit, that's, I mean, this is relatively new, us even doing it the way we're doing it, where it used to be much more.
And it was always July 1.
It was always July 1, but as we also know, the conditions on the ground did not warrant July 1 in most of the county. And there's.
My burn pile is still wet.
Yeah.
And I went into place 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, me too, as I got most of my stuff done, but Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to rescind the burn ban resolution number 05722 dated 5/31/2022.
I would second the motion.
Discussion? I think if we're going to rescind this burn ban and we are going to put out information to the public, I think it makes more sense to put that information out there once. My thought would be is that we rescind the motion and then when we put that information out in the public, that we have the expectation that it will be
July 1st, yeah.
We can't say that it'll be July 1st, but we can say expect it to be July 1st.
I would agree with the amendment to the motion.
I think that's more just of the direction.
Clarification of the motion?
No, the motion is to rescind it, but it's how you say it in the public. And I think if we're all in agreement that we're looking at July 1, then at least we can say the resolution has been suspended, or that, the burn ban for Zone 3 has been suspended. Expect it to be July 1.
Right.
More decision will be made next week. All right. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, last up, Mr. Rob.
I live in the scenic area too, so.
Outside the urban area?
Yes.
Oh, Well, there's two of us now.
I think.
Oh, you'd know.
Oh,
I thought you were on the city council. Did you move? Oh.
They ran me out. No, I'm kidding. I didn't know I moved. So anyway, since I'm here in my role as interim solid waste director, I guess. Since I can't figure out who needs to approve this, I'm getting approval from everybody. So as you know, this morning we received the resignation from the recycle coordinator who will be leaving at the end of the month. So I've got confirmation from the auditor, the treasurer, the fiscal manager, and
Quick enough.
Courtney, the interim adult probation officer, I guess that's her title, chief probation officer, and Judge Baker and Judge Hanson to move the litter grant from solid waste to the adult probation department. So not only move the funds, but move the management of it and the oversight of it, which may include actually getting an amendment to the grant because the signature of the grant, the person who's on there will no longer be employed by us. So I have to work that out with ecology, but everybody does agree that it makes sense to move it over there, and then the outgoing recycling coordinator can train the adult probation staff, Courtney and Sandy, on how to submit the reports and administer the grant. Just a reminder to the commissioners before I ask for your concurrence is that under any scenario, there's not enough funds to cover the position. Currently, we're paying it out of solid waste, and there are additional funds there to cover it. You may recall the discussion we had at step one. The grant was not covered, or the cost was not covered by the grant, and so that still exists no matter where it resides. So it'll be an issue at some point. Right now, we can cover it through funds left over in solid waste from vacated positions, but when we move it, it'll be something we'll have to deal with. So just a reminder that
But we can still move funds from solid waste over to it to cover that difference, right?
I suspect, yes, yeah,
Should be one way or the other.
one way or the other, yeah. Leave them there and move them somewhere else, but there will be funds left over at this point, so yes. But just a reminder that we're gonna have to take an action on that, or find the fund somewhere, or physically move them, or do a supplemental, but I know Courtney's a little worried about that when it moves. So with your concurrence, are you in agreement to move the grant?
I'm in agreement, and I believe that the difference, it's getting funded out of landfill dollars, which are general purpose dollars, so you can.
I think there's like $246,000 in landfill funds that are in there.
Are allocated, so.
So whether you transfer them from there to there or there back into the general.
Right.
Back
there.
out of the.
At the end of the
whichever way is
day.
Cleaner with finance is fine with
Yeah,
me.
whatever the auditor says.
Don't
we have
count
to
it
do.
3 times.
At the end of the day, they're in the bucket.
They're in the bucket.
It's just, yes. And I'll work with the auditor on that, so. Are we okay to move the grant?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. It's like United Nations, I got everybody to agree.
Is there anything else?
No, that's it, thank you.
Didn't want to talk about the one lady that you'd spoken with? No. On solid waste?
Oh, the
Oh,
meeting Thursday. We're
oh,
gonna do that on
Thursday.
Oh, yeah, I guess we're doing it Thursday.
Yeah, she's gonna call in the workshop and.
I didn't know if we needed to have a conversation before.
Well, I mean, if you have
Before
time.
conversation?
Yeah. I think I've talked to you individually. My first chance to talk to you all together, at least my thought is, and it's ultimately what you think, is maybe this consultant can help us determine what is required by state law and maybe federal law in these areas. And I'm not necessarily talking about the landfill and Republic, but there is an element of that could advise you if you decide to go into contract negotiations, or inform you, but help us understand the minimum required, what we have to do. And then you could build upon that if you chose, and you'd know how to staff to it if you knew what the minimum requirements are in all of those areas. So Commissioner Christopher, that you've kind of taken the lead on that, is that what?
No, that's kind of where I'm at, but that's kind of where I kind of brought this name in, is because we're soon gonna have a lot of choices And I think we should be able to make educated choices based on knowing as much as we possibly can before we make said choices. So,
The solid waste management plan is very informative. I know Director Quinn and I have reread it recently, and it does talk a lot about the landfill and oversight, state agencies, counties' responsibilities. And so it's a very informative document. And this consultant, Wendy, was the consultant hired to draft that plan and present it to the commissioners.
Well, then she should already know all the answers to the questions.
She's should be a very informed person. Yes.
Very little remembrance needed. Investigation.
And then finally, I'd mention, you may know this, I don't know if George had a chance to make it down today, but he started Monday, so your new codes enforcement officer is on the job. We got him car keys and office keys and a computer, and
And he was sworn in, so he's a
Yep.
special deputy as well.
Sheriff swore him in. So anyway, I think he'll be visiting you soon, but he is here and on the job. So
I went and saw him this morning.
thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, sir. All right. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
If not, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting until Thursday, June 16th, 2022 at 9:10 a.m. for scheduled workshops.
we didn't ask prosecutor for anything, but I'm assuming we already know that there's not.
Yeah, there's nothing from the prosecutor today.
Got it. I would second the motion.
You need to be on the record? Okay. There's been a motion, a second to adjourn until 9:10 on Thursday, June 16th. Thank you all for being involved and being a part of government of Klickitat County. Have a great day. Or all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did. I thought maybe I blacked out for a minute.
I could have as well.
That was earlier.
Yes.